I've divided this, I've just basically went chapter by chapter, and I've just identified all the major changes or all the concerns that we have heard, whether it's from residents or from the board or concerns that staff had as well. And it's an open discussion. If there are any questions, please let us know at this time. So the agenda, major updates in module 1 and module 2. So module 1 is broken into chapters 1 to 3, and this is just for purposes of doing the update. In the end, the UDO will just have 10 chapters. It won't be module 1 or 2 at that time. And then we have our open discussion, question and answers, or we could go chapter by chapter. So our major changes overall. So the zoning ordinance and the development regulations, they have been combined into one fluid document. Currently, we have chapters 1, 2, and 3, zoning ordinance, regulations, and then water resources manual. But we've actually removed chapter 3. That's going to go back on the water resources, and they're going to complete their own updates on that. So currently, it's just the zoning ordinance and the regulations, and now it's just the one UDO document when this update is finished. The chapters have been organized and they've been reorganized and integrated to flow more efficiently. We have used more visual aids, such as diagrams, charts, and tables to condense data. And the regulations have been updated to better reflect the county's current and future needs, especially in terms of our subdivision requirements and development. So our progress so far, working with our consulting company. So module 1, which is chapters 1 through 3, we're 95% of that, and I say that because even as we're doing this work session, they are continuously updating. So even the document you have in front of you, they've made updates since then. So we will have that presented eventually to the board. And then for module 2, we have some of the chapters are at 100% complete. And then we have others like the overlay district, which are large chapters, and those had a lot of changes that work that needed to be done. Particularly the Almond, Salem, and Bristol overlay. So they're at 90% for that. Of course, regulations of rights districts, set 90%. Development review procedures, those cover actual things like our plans, the whole process of doing text and zoning amendments. So that's a 75% because we're taking our time with that to address some of the current challenges that we're facing now. Enforcement and penalties is a very short chapter, just basically gives a scope of how we can enforce the ordinance, basically through code enforcement and so on. And again, subdivision standards, that actually goes through, I won't go through all of that, but that looks at the standards that are required for subdivisions when it comes to things like the streets or the planting and so on. So that chapter goes in depth with that, and there are 50% of that. This was as of last week. They've been working since then, so these numbers have probably changed since then as they continue to work on that. And I will pause after this slide if there are any questions from the boards. Thank you. So chapter 1 is general provisions. So this chapter here, basically, it looks at all of our administrative processes, the purpose, the short title, relationship to the comp plan, zoning districts, severability, jurisdictions, all of the legal and administrative things that are related to our ordinance that allows us to enforce it. So it has been rearranged to allow for easier reading. We have looked at our definitions as well. The definitions are included in this chapter, which those have been updated. We've added new ones as processes of change, new uses have come online. So we've done that. We've also, it's a new section in chapter 1, but it's taken from a different part of the ordinance, the measurements and allowances. So the measurements basically look at the first graphic up here at the top. That's just an example, gross density. So it shows the one labeled A is the dotted red line around the entire parcel to show you, that is how to measure gross density. So it's that number divided by B, which is the number of units. So the measurements, so it has a graphic for these things such as amenity, percentage gross density, lot averages, you know, your gross floor area, in case anyone wants to know how to calculate those. This section here shows them, you know, examples of how that is done. And then we have allowances, which looks at setbacks, averaging lot size, averaging corner and side setbacks. So it gives the reader an idea of how what we're talking about. And the graphic at the bottom, you'll see that the lots are different sizes, kind of thing. So this is just illustrative to for further to clarify when people are reading, if they have questions. Well, this chapter explains what all those technical terms mean. And these are just some examples. If you flip through your chapter 1, you'll see we have others in there. I think we got some extra. We can bring those over if you would like. Oh, you got yours. Okay, it's the same ordinance. So those are some of the major changes in chapter 1. And if there are any questions on that, it says privileges, administrative section, and the definitions and so on.
So I do have a question. So for this particular drawing, and my concern would be is, you know, this particular drawing would have to do with what? A subdivision plat? Because I don't want to be the A here. I don't want to live next door to A.
No, it just tells you how to, like if you want to know what a gross density is, you want to check for yourself. It tells you how to find that. So the number of dwelling units B is all of the units in here divided by A, which is the total area of this whole green space. So just showing you how to calculate gross density, period.
It's not
It's not specific to any subdivision.
Hello? Okay, so what I want to make sure though is nobody will take that and interpret that, okay, in order to get my density, I'm going to have this house sitting on this property line and this house sitting away from the property line. So I just want to make sure that you know, I look for loopholes.
Absolutely.
I've worked for builders for 30 years, so I look for loopholes. And so that's why I just want to make sure that we have a caveat with this page. So I want to make a note of that this is just how to calculate. This is not showing how it's going to be laid out.
Correct. It is the universal calculation for density. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So just so you'll find more examples like these for all our technical terms. So just makes it easier. And then, you know, the lot averaging or, you know, median size loss as long as you're within the density. So it just gives it a more visual appearance for the reader.
Landis, you understand that, right?
Yes, yeah, and I agree. Builders will do anything they can to circumvent.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're, and I'm not saying that negative. I'm because they do, to get the return, they want to get the maximum amount they can with the usage of the land, with the streets and everything else that they have to have in there. So I just want to make sure that they understand, because somebody will say, oh, you got this drawing here, that this one's on the property line. So we just want to make sure that there is a footnote.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Shane, I'm in agreement too. I want to make sure because it really affected.
Turn it off. It's a little deceiving. Turn it to the minus.
It's really affected District 3. So I want to make sure that we're clear on the loopholes. It seems like they're often found in District 3. So so I want to make sure we take all loopholes, because we got a lot of high density and we want to prevent some of that in District 3.
Yeah, well, when it gets to the particular parcel they're looking at, you know, it'll just tell them this is how you calculate it. Number of dwelling units divided by total area that you're looking at. So that's all this is. This in no way says that this is what you have to do, this is what we're allowing you, these specific number of houses. It just shows you how to calculate the gross density, which is a universal calculation. So, yeah.
That question I have to Ms. Applewhite is that I think that help us now, you know, as far as the people who are looking at to develop high density project.
How does this assist with that?
I mean, yes, that's why how could it help us now? Because you know, it was last meeting, and they want to be I think we go 1,000 houses of core road. And so could if this help us now, or this is something we all in the future?
So for your standard subdivision that won't have, that's your question too, Mr. Brown, that won't have, like, you know, wetlands and so on. Those areas of wetlands and floodplain, it removes the wetland and floodplain and then calculates the density. But if subdivisions that don't have that, it's just the total area divided, the dwelling units divided by the total area. So let's say if one subdivision is 20 acres and 10 of those acres are wetlands, those will be removed when we're calculating for that particular subdivision. And then you have your density calculated on the area you can actually build on. So that would close that loophole.
Thank you.
We go to chapter 2. So chapter 2 looks at our base district regulations. So these are our base district zonings. We put them in a tabular form. We've also, in the table, it brings the charter areas for the comprehensive plan right here to the state so you can see it. It also has the future land use map designations. So you can see the correlation with the zoning, the charter areas, the flume, and then it has suggested zones it can be adjacent to. Now we are in the process of amending the charter areas that are allowed in certain zonings. So this is not going to reflect that right now until we actually make that amendment, which is coming next month to the board. So I guess this is the same chapter that has like all your zoning districts: agriculture, residential, single family. So we just reorganized how it appears to make it easier to read. Demonstrates things such as setbacks and frontage, and I'll show the next slide. It allows for easier reading. You can compare the right instead of flipping back and forth between the comp plan and the UDO. It's all right here in this table. And this is just a partial table. That isn't list all of the zoning categories here. We have added a new district, technology campus. It's still under review, so I have to blue. We're not problem with the detail right now, so we're finished reviewing them. And then we have special provisions also in this Article 2. And that basically looks at things like, corner lots, height limits, classification of streets, minimum lot size, traffic study, development of regional impacts, development of community impacts, development types, site maintenance. So I'm just going to go through the slides as we discuss that. So this is how the zoning categories will now appear. So you have a table, everything is condensed in the table. Before it's just all text.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Shane, you were first. Go ahead.
Where's mine?
On the technology campus.
There's another mine.
Good morning. Good morning.
There we go.
On the technology campus, what are we looking to fit into that particular zoning district?
So I said that was still currently under review, but it would be largely like the data centers and those kind of developments.
Hey, so, Ms. Atwood, if you go back one slide, I see on the PowerPoint there on the left column, rural estate, there's one that's cut off, it looks like. There's another, is that another?
Oh, yeah.
Is that rural residential? I mean, agricultural residential?
Yes.
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 This is rural
Page
residential.
1 in chapter 2.
So agricultural residential would be the one below that. Yes, like I said, I just cropped it so I'm trying to get as many as possible. This is not the full table.
It's chapter 2, page 1.
Yes, chapter 2, so the full table is in, yeah. So there is agricultural residential below that. This is just to give a sample, I don't want the PowerPoint to be too long.
Real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and open up Pandora's box right now. So we have 3 hours to do it. We have to make sure, if this Board of Commissioners and the Planning Commission and the citizens and everybody involved has to decide if this UDO plan matches what we are saying and what the citizens of Newton County are saying. I am not convinced it does. And I think there needs to be a lot of things done, and I think that we need to, the other night was a prime example of that. You know, we have plats that were zoned 2 years ago, and now we're looking at 2 years later. So much has changed, so much as the philosophy has changed, the citizens are more vocal of what they want in Newton County. And we have to decide as a board, are we listening or are we not listening? So if we're listening, which I know this board is listening, we have to make these changes and decide that we do not want the county to eat up with townhouses and high density developments. That we would like to have quality of life here still, we would like to have where we can get people here to have a trauma center at our hospital, where we can have all walks of life and all walks of people. And I think years ago, that's what the overlay was trying to do, but I think we've outrun the overlay maps. We have to have infrastructure in place first. And I've got a lot of notes for you that I took yesterday. We don't have it set up where if the infrastructure is not in place, then the zoning does not happen. We have to do that. We have to say that the infrastructure has to be there before. It cannot be a promise. It cannot be an after fact. Okay? So with these zoning categories, I think it's better if we have a map that actually matches for people where you can put certain developments. Right now, it's too open, it's too vague, the areas are too large. I looked at 14 other counties in Georgia, and their high density is very local to the city limits of a city, right around where we were trying to do those little stars on the map that we didn't like. So they were all located very close to a city limits where you do have all the infrastructure in place. You have sewer, you have water, you have high-speed internet. Right now, we don't have that consistency. We have to decide before we do all of this, is what is this county gonna look like? Are we gonna have townhouses all over District 3 and District 4? They're gonna move out to 5. Everybody wants to put a data center in District 5. District 1, you go on the way. So you've got to decide what we want this county to look like. I think the vision of this board is to have areas that are high density, that are close in, and limit how many of those can be. Can't just be every slice of land on Harold Dobbs and Coral Road to be high density. And it can't be, it has to be a balance. And I think this board wants a balance, but I don't see a balance being changed in this UDO. And that's my biggest concern before we keep going forward and forward. We've been talking about that since last year, that we didn't want a cookie cutter. And I know you guys will work hard. I'm not taking anything away from you, champion. I know y'all have. But I think we still have a lot of open spots to improve on, where we can say, okay, this is an R1 area, and the only thing that's available in R1 is gonna be single-family residential. It's not gonna be a cord. It's not gonna be a live, work, play where you can put 5 stories on top of a building and have your office at the bottom of them. That's not really the future of Newton County. So, if they wanna live in Alpharetta, great, that's in Alpharetta, go to Alpharetta. But people don't come to Newton County for that. I get calls every day for, I want a yard to raise my kid. I want chickens, okay? So, sorry to bring up the C word. But anyway, but this is not what the people are telling us, and this is not what the Board of Commissioners is saying. The other night was a disaster, and I won't go into it anymore. But you've got projects that came along a long time ago that don't fit the character areas anymore. So I think that, and I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but I feel like that we have got to make sure that this is our one chance to get this right. And we want to make sure that we get it right. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, but there are some areas for improvement still on this UDO, and I see a lot of those. And unfortunately, I don't feel like we're getting to the end as fast as we would like to be.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, first of all, I thank Ms. Applewhite for just kind of trying to help. Remember, she is the young lady who's helping the Board of Commissioners give us information, and it's for us to accept information. The problem that I have with the way that it was going is the fact that here we are, people outside the board making decisions, which they can, because they're judges, et cetera. But I thought we should have known, or I should have known, possibly Mr. Cooper, Bishop Cooper should have known what was coming down the pipe when you get to a meeting, a couple meetings, and then you find out that it's been changed. And then you look at your residents and say, well, it's been changed, but what can you do? And most of the time, it's little of nothing that you can do in order to help your constituents. And so, I think it's a mixture of maybe this meeting, and with our attorneys too, well, I'm not gonna let them get off with just saying, hey, it's okay, we making money. We want to, if we're gonna make a difference for our constituents, we got to work together. And so far, we are not working together as far as our high density. And was made 10 years ago or 20 years ago, maybe a little bit more than this, and I've been on the board. It just took a long time to work your way down the pipe. Probably sold several times. But we look for help. And I don't think my constituents need all of our town halls. Mr. Cooper, Commissioner Cooper, he doesn't think it does it well. So, any questions that I've been asking, I think I started asking since last meeting. What can we do to stop all this growth that we don't want? That I think it really don't need. And I think we should make our own decision as commissioners, elected officials, make our own decision as for what we might want to see along with the community, as for what we might want to see in our district. And so, I think, I don't know what we're doing, but I tell you, like I told one person, it's going off a little bit. I tell you, like I told one person in running, and they said, well, I just lost 3 elections, 4 elections. I said, well, maybe doing the same old thing that you were doing when you stole it the first time. So you need to try to find something else to make it happen. So I think that's where we're at. We've been losing. And losing. It's time for us to figure out a way to win. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
If I could just take a moment to encourage this board. We are looking at the big picture here, and we are trying to fix something that previous boards did not fix. And so it is going to take time. It is going to take a process. What we are seeing today is the beginning of where we should be moving toward. And I think, I don't want this board to misconstrue, our county is not equitable already. You have the west side of the county that is highly dense, urban, suburban. You have the east side of the county that is more rural. So we're already off kilter, we're already off balance as we begin this process. And so what I would like to encourage this board to do is allow Shana, allow the consultants that we've hired to come in to help us with this, and we drill down with what they present to us versus throwing darts. Let's just say, okay, we see what you all have presented to us. This is what the residents want. This is now what you presented to us may not look like what the residents is asking us for at this time. So because we know what the residents are asking us for at this time, let's take what we have, let's go line by line, let's dissect it, let's tear it apart so that we can do what we need to do. So I don't want this board to take this beginning as a negative approach. I want us to look at this from a positive aspect to say, now since I've been on the board, we've never done this before. So this is the beginning process of where we need to be going. So let's just take what we've got, let's dissect it, let's break it down, let's, the feedback that we get from residents, let's say, hey, Shana, let's add this, or let's take away that. Let's make this a working progress starting now versus saying, hey, we've arrived at the finished product in this work session, because we haven't. This is just the beginning. And so we, as the Board of Commissioners, we've got to really work hard to look at everything and say, hey, let's change this or let's change that. Or I think we do want to say, okay, well, we want industrial in this part of the county. We want residential in this part of the county. We want commercial in this part of the county. So I believe that's what this process is all about. This is the beginning of that process. So let's allow the process to work itself out. And let's look at what they presented to us, dissect it, and take the feedback that we have and truly work through this. And so I think, this is the first work session that I'm aware of that we've had on the UDO. We've done things behind the scenes where we've given feedback. I have residents reaching out to me in District 2 saying, hey, Commissioner Mason, I'd like to see this, or we'd like to see that. And then those things we can bring as we have these work sessions to the table. But I just want to encourage us to let's just not come from a negative space. Let's come from a positive space and say, hey, we got something to work with. Let's see what we have. Let's break it down. Let's tear it apart and make it what we and the community desires for it to be. Yeah, we are doing that, but I think what I'm hearing is I don't want to make this a bash session. I want this to be a productive work session. Yes, we know that we're not where we need to be. This is beginning with the end in mind. So we're beginning now. We haven't reached the end yet. We're on our way.
We're not beginning. We are at the end.
Well, the thing about it is that we have not had an opportunity to really sit down and dissect it from a. That is correct. And so that's what I'm saying. Let's utilize this space for what it's supposed to be, and let's take this time and use it from a productive space and say, okay, yeah, I see that, we have this, let's try to change this, or let's implement that, and let's not make it, look at it from a, and I've said it before, from a negative space, or from a, hey, we're not there, we're on our way. And so that's how I just want to encourage the board to just take what we have, let's work through it. And we're gonna get to the end result. We're gonna get there.
We are.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Well, I don't disagree with anything that was said, but I think it's important that we keep in mind as a board that there are many, many properties in the county that will not fall under whatever revision we make to this UDO. Some of them are allowed by right. As a matter of fact, the one we tabled Tuesday night is allowed by right. It fits the zoning, what they want to do fits the zoning, and we tabled it. So I don't know how we handle those going forward, because we're going to have citizens and even we as commissioners that do not like what we see, but it's allowed by right.
Under the current UDO, under the current ordinances. So we have to work through those and understand those, and some of those I don't know how we handle those exactly. Some of those what we saw, we lost one in Superior Court, and I don't know how that's going to change with the table we put in place. But I voted for the table. Don't get me wrong, but we have to think about the properties that will not fall into this, whether we finish it today or 2 years from today. So we have properties outstanding that are in the process that were platted before this was, during the old UDO. So we got to think about those properties and how we're going to handle those meetings going forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Just to clear this up real quick, I don't want to misconstrue what I'm saying, Devon, because I totally agree with you, but respectfully, I disagree with you. And the reason why I'm going to say that is this is our third or fourth UDO meeting. I have been begging for a work session so we could get down to the meat and potatoes of this, Because we are at the end. Their timeline was for us to approve this in August. So we're at the end, and that's what's concerning to me is we're at the end, and I agree, we should be able to go down, and what I've been doing is going through this line for line, page for page, and having discussions and things like that. So it's not from a negative space at all. I don't know if you were directing that to me or not, but this is from a passionate space, you know, a passionate space to make sure that we get this right. I feel like a couple years ago, there was some things that people didn't remember, they didn't know about. And I just want to make sure that whether we agree with it or not, if we all agree to vote for it, then we all have to be able to understand it and stand up for it, whatever the product is, the finished product is. And you know, the ones that are already in the hopper, there's nothing we can do with that. They're going to be on the old ordinance. But going forward, we have to decide, you know, where is that space? And, you know, reading every page of this, I doubt that, you know, I'm not even going to read every single page of this thing. But, you know, digging into it, we have to say, you know, this is why I begged for this work session to be a work session, not another presentation from the UDO company that's putting this together. Because I think it is time for us to dig down deep. And that was why my opening statement was, we have to decide where we want to be. And I think that I've looked at other counties and they have a clear plan of, yes, high density is here, it's not here. Yes, subdivisions are here, yes, industrial's here. I don't know that ours is concise as that, and I just want to make sure that it is. I'm going to let the experts do the job. That's who does this job. But they need to have the same philosophy that we have. And that's where I feel like we have a little bit of a disconnect. I'm not sure that the philosophy that the board is trying to get the message out and the citizens are getting the message out to us, because we all work for them. And so we need to make sure of that. And that's the only thing I'm trying to say is now is the time to dig through every single page and every single chapter. And I have, you know, forwarded, you know, all of y'all notes that I've made and things like that. But, you know, I think this was supposed to be a dig in, not a presentation.
Yeah. Can I say something? Madam Chair? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. But what I wanted to say was that I wanted the board to have the same enthusiasm as for the projects that's in District 4 that were approved against, and you're right. And it seemed like, you know, it's been other projects, you know, such as Davidson. We talked about that stuff 50 times, not 50, several times as episode. And it was left up to the district commissioner to have a robust conversation and figure out a way to, I guess, to slow it down. So I was just asking for the same thing for us to do about this subdivision. And he said, well, you know, he said, well, you talk about spending a lot of money. I don't want to spend no more money. You know, I think if we, as much money as we have already spent, they should want to do something to help us in our district. Help us with this subdivision, right on side the creek, I called it. And so, but we're not getting that same response. We're not digging in. So what can we do? And that's one of the reasons I asked the question when I first came in. And it's not about fussing. I asked the question, I said, why can't we work with the same mentality as we have dealt with other projects, with other folks in other districts? That's in District 4. That's all I ask. No more, no less.
I didn't say you were fussing, JC.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
Thank you.
What I'm saying is that this is gonna be a living document. So when we vote on this in August, or whenever we decide to vote, it's not going to be a final document. So we can sit here and break this thing down and tear it apart and do everything we can, or we want to. But tomorrow, it may change, or, you know, next year it may change. So I want us to keep in mind, this is a living document, not a, once we vote, we can never go back, we can never change anything, we can never update anything, we can never edit anything. It's a living document. And so even though once we get to vote, it may not be exactly the way we want it, but we've got to vote on it, and we've got to do the best we can to make sure that it's as close as we think it needs to be. And then, you know, this has to be something, and maybe, you know, Shayna and James, you know, this may be something that we may have to do annually, you know, where we sit down and have a work session and say, okay, we've gone through 12 months, now we see that this should change, or we see that, you know, that should change. So I don't want us to think that when we make a final vote, that's it. We can never go back and edit, we can never go back and update, we can never go back and change. It's a living document, and it's not going to be perfect. Once we vote on it, we're working towards that.
Needs to be a roadmap though. Don't let me come down there.
Come on. I wanted to say, on the plan, from planning, first of all, we appreciate everybody's hard efforts in trying to push the ball down the field. And all of you all are on the money. We face some serious challenges. And like Commissioner Edwards said, you know, there's things in the hopper. I've been on the planning board on and off for some years, and everybody's trying to run because, of course, in Leanna tell you, the developers and builders know the UDO is coming. So they're trying to rush and put everything to the forefront on these old parcels that have been sitting for years. And we also have other concerns. They approach me all the time, but they approach you guys in the grocery stores about the biggest thing that I hear right now are subdivisions that are being flipped from regular purchases to rentals. And that's going on between us and Gwinnett County and throughout. So I don't know if that's something that can be addressed at the local level or state level, but it's desperately needed. A lot of citizens approached me about lot minimums, you know, lot size minimums throughout the county. Whatever works for District 1 and 5 should work for 2, 3, and 4.
That's right.
Amen.
Amen.
So, just across the line, because that'll slow down a lot of
Preach.
That'll slow down a lot of that. And it's not that anybody, I work in real estate, Ms. Long works in real estate, all of you all have worked in real estate in some way or another, insurance. So we're not against development or business, but we want smart growth. And the last thing I want to say is whatever decisions that we're making, we have to keep in mind, yes, we can't change some of the things that are in the hopper, but this will affect us for the next years to come. My kids' will be affected by the decisions that we make. So we need to be good shepherds and do what's best, and that's it.
And also, like I said, I'm still have to go back on this high density and town hall and gas station. I know the moratorium is supposed to be limited for, should be in a couple of weeks. Now, while we're going through this process, what's gonna stop this after moratorium? If it live there, or whatever, I'm not sure. But what's gonna happen with the building after that? I mean,
The moratorium will be lifted. So the moratorium will be lifted once this new basic UDO is approved. So whatever the board approves in the new UDO, that is what will hold moving forward. So in terms of the gas station, we've already completed that amendment. So even if that's already been adopted, the moratorium is still in place, but once the moratorium on the C-stores are lifted, the new amendment that we put in place, that's what will go into effect. Even though the UDO is not done yet, that's already in effect because the board has already approved it. There's just a moratorium on it right now. So all the conditions would be, the new conditions we put on C-stores, that's currently, anybody who comes in for a C-store now, they'll be held to those amendments.
okay, and all of that would be on a conditional or uses, gas stations, do we make that?
I don't believe we made it conditional, I think we just put in what we wanted to see, like the distance separation, the landscaping, all the items that the board wanted to see on the C-stores moving forward. they were put into the amendment.
So that's kind of like what Commissioner Mason was just saying, that it's a living document, so we went ahead and adjusted the convenience store due to necessity, and so that's already in place. So like, as this moves forward, I mean, once we make a good roadmap, because you gotta have a roadmap for people that wanna build, I mean, they gotta know the answers to the questions before they start, okay? But if we see there that we made a mistake or we forgot something, you can amend at any time to this. You just don't wanna have amendments every week. So you want a good roadmap, but the amendments that we already made about the movies, about the convenience stores, things like that, those are already in effect because we went ahead and voted those to be, so anybody that comes forward now will have to be under that ordinance before this is even done. Okay. Does that help?
So, as y'all indicated, this is, like Commissioner Long, Commissioner Mason, y'all indicated, this is the first of many opportunities that we'll go through this. One of the goals that we also set, that this, like you indicated with Commissioner Mason, this is gonna be a living, breathing document. This is not gonna be like it has, and on some other things that we kind of changing within the county, a document that is being gone through, you put on the shelf and you start collecting dust. We're not gonna do that. One of the things that we're gonna have to do is have these type of discussions on a yearly basis, or whatever time that the boards come up with that finds that the community is changing more rapidly, more slowly. It all depends on what y'all's purview is gonna be, and you indicate to staff that, hey, we need to have another sit-down conversation and see if we need to update this document to what is going on in the here and now and how we're gonna continue to plan in the future. So that's one of the goals that is for this document. It's not gonna be a final document per se, but it is gonna give us a great roadmap on how we're gonna proceed forward and the things that we need to do for the community to make it better.
I'd like to go ahead and make one suggestion if I could. I may be the only commissioner that feels this way. If we eliminated multifamily from the UDO altogether, it suit me just fine.
Yeah, Cord, I think Cord has got to go, the Cord.
I'll start the conversation. Eliminate no more multifamily in unincorporated. So,
I think the Cord.
you heard it here first.
All right, thank you, commissioners. Just a concern that was raised with, I think one of the questions that came up with, how do we determine what we want built where? The zoning does that. So everything that is in the A zoning, right, 10 acres minimum, so that's how we determine what we want to build where. The R1, R2, those are single family zonings only. So that would be the roadmap for that. So this is how we're proposing to present it. This is just a sample of the A zoning, and it comes with the graphic. So if you want to know what their road frontage looks like, B shows that as our also front of your parcel. It shows what your setbacks will look like. So these are questions we get all the time. What are my setbacks? What does that look like? So each zoning category comes with an accompanying diagram, just a simple illustration to assist readers, when they're looking at the ordinance. I just plugged some examples. This is R1 single family, and again, it tells you, the densities, the lot sizes are still 40,000 square feet. Water and septic, 35,000 square feet water and sewer. And these were amended in 2022 by the board. They used to be a little smaller than that. Again, it shows the setbacks. It has the accompanying diagram with the single family home, so readers can have a better understanding when they're reading.
That side setback is too small, 12 foot is too high. D,
The side setback,
yeah,
that's the minimum.
that's tight.
You talking about the front setback?
Landless.
This is
Side at
R1,
12 feet.
single family.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought we were at 15 foot.
Yeah.
Some zoning districts are 15, some are 12. So the R1 tend to be on smaller lots. So this is the minimum. They can go
Looks like
further
go up.
out, but they can't
But
go.
this
They
is
can't
like
be
that.
11 or 10 feet.
Okay.
It has to be 12 or higher.
Okay.
And because these lots tend to be smaller, so
Circle that one, get that one.
12 feet.
Please. That's really high. But if it's on, I was just saying,
commercial. This is a sample of what that's gonna look like, and again, the graphics accompany it. Since we just have to decipher all the different technical terms. So this is just some of the examples that we use for chapter 2. And again, chapter 2 is our base zoning districts, which determines our densities and determines what kind of development will go where.
I do like the flow of this book much better. Somebody that has to look up a lot of this stuff, it is a lot easier to come on.
If there are no other questions on chapter 2, we venture into 3. So, chapter 3, these are use standards. So this is currently our chapter 5, where it shows all the table with all the allowed uses. We moved it up to chapter 3, just for a better flow. So some of the new uses we are looking at, because we get questions and inquiries all the time, things like an agro-tourism center, you know, an amphitheater, stadium, concert hall, of course, data centers, electric vehicle charging stations, and wellness retreat centers. These are just some of the examples of uses that have come up over the years. So we have incorporated them into our use table and determining which zonings, you know, they're appropriate for. We made clarifications on other uses, our accessory dwelling units, convenience stores. That's the whole amendment that we did, just completed. We did also landscaping commercial. We just completed that amendment. Livestock, particularly chickens, and we'll come back to that. Truck stop, truck terminal, truck parking. I'm moving quickly.
We saw the ordinance years ago that there was no truck stops. Yeah, there is an ordinance out there.
We have an ordinance of truck stops.
Okay, so why do we have truck stops in here if we don't have truck stops?
We have one currently, it's just kind of combined with terminal and dispatch, so we're trying to separate them out for clarity. But we do have truck stops, we have truck dispatch centers, we have truck terminals currently, but they're all kind of mixed up. So this is just presented to further clarify that for us. And again, campground and recreational vehicle park are kind of combined into one small section. We've separated that out because we've gotten a lot of inquiries of campground and we didn't feel that the current ordinance reflected, you know, what it is we wanted to see or something like that. And of course, recreational vehicle parks, we haven't had any of those in probably several decades.
Which one?
The RV parks, we haven't had any new ones, they're all like from the 70s and 80s, but we do want to have a strong ordinance in place in case that comes up.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
With the convenience store. I'm sorry.
You definitely did like.
With the convenience stores, if there a way we can put a limit or something on it, cause like I say, I got so many in District 3 gas stations, convenience stores. Is there any way we can put any type of limit for the district?
So,
We just did.
we just did that amendment. I think what we put in there was that they tend to locate at junctions.
Right.
Instead of having 4 at the junction, we limited to 2, you know, on opposite sides. I think we also implemented a distance separation of 2 miles from each other if they're on a linear, on a road. So we did put measures in place to reduce the clustering of C-stores. As well as the numbers that we were, because like the Salem Road example, you know, we counted like in a 1 mile span, we had 7 currently right now.
11.
Yeah.
And another one is trying to come in that space. So we're having a distance separation that we did in the amendment that will address that. Chairman Stevens.
Yes, ma'am, I want to ask another question too, and it's an oddball question for the convenience centers. Can we make them, I see we have electric vehicle charging stations. Can we make them, if they're going to put up a gas station, can we make it mandatory that they also limit the number of pumps, which I know we don't even, and if we can make them put up electric vehicle charging stations as well?
We did limit the number of pumps on the amendment we just made. And yes, we can look at the EV stations. I know this addresses like EV stations separately, but we can absolutely look at incorporating there because electric vehicles appear to be the future. So we're just gonna try and get ahead of that, and yeah.
And when we do that, we have to have standards around them because they are terrible, like trash and crap everywhere. It's not a very good look for our county.
So those are some of these that we Sorry.
Shane, I have a question. Two words since we on service station. I tried my best not to even end this conversation. But I'm gonna do it though. I'm gonna do it, Commissioner.
Go right ahead.
Do it.
Well, the problem
place.
that I have, I guess with the, convenience store law in town and in the city, is that there are just little mini casinos, in my opinion. They also, where you can go and get, you can get vapes, also get dusters, and other stuff that's, you know, for, you know, that they probably shouldn't have. And if a friend of mine was telling me, we were talking about convenience store, said most everyone that's built new is $1 billion because they're taking so much money. So who is, I mean, I know you don't have anything to do, who is monitoring those stores? Because alcoholism, especially in the cities, is at an all-time high. Beer and wine, just like liquor, you get drunk and there'll be a whole lot of stuff going on that shouldn't be going on. And this is a discussion that we're not having on those convenience centers. And I think it should be a discussion on that too. And I'm just going to end with this. We're talking about, maybe I already have cut the budget of sheriff, and yet there's so much stuff going on. For example, what's called roses. Those are paraphernalia that they get smoking crack with. And I think they just full of them, all of them. Cause I was in the store, I'm gonna close it. I was in the store, I said, what is this? It's nice, what is this? Oh, it's just a little, and some of you smoke crack with it. So, see what I know, I just learned that off the cuff.
You said somebody smoke crack.
Yeah, that would be it.
No.
Not me, I don't smoke crack, but it's so convenient. And I seldom ask the question, is who's getting those? Is it our kids?
That's a staple.
Well, it may
I
be,
agree.
but I think it's something we have to do. I'm sorry.
We could stop the machine.
Shannon, did we address the vape shops and the casinos, mini casinos in the last convenience store ordinance that we put in place? I don't recall us addressing it. And is that something from a legal space that we can actually tell a business what they can and cannot have within their business? Is that something legally we can even do?
I know the state allows the beer and wine sales and the tobacco products, because they do have to get their approval before they come and get their license from us. The vape shops, we are looking to prohibit vape shops, period.
Okay.
But currently, convenience stores can sell tobacco products, and they can sell just beer and wine, nothing harder than that. In terms of the games, the slot machines, these are state regulated. Yeah, we looked this up because it came up before. I do see them in our convenience centers.
Correct. They're even in grocery stores.
Yeah.
So they're in convenience stores, they're in grocery stores. I mean, I know in District 2, you go to Kroger, and you go back by bathrooms and you see a mini casino. So it's not just convenience stores, it's in grocery stores, and I didn't know if, and I know this subject matter has come up before amongst our board, so I just wanted to make sure that we discuss that from a public space so that the public will know and we will know, is this something legally that the Board of Commissioners can actually address on a local level? But what you're saying is the casinos or the games has to be state.
Yes, those are largely state regulated.
So now we know what to push ACCG to do to lobby on our behalf on a local level to make sure that that's something that we are encouraging our state legislators to address when they get into session. We do have, and I'm just putting this plug out here, we do have some North and South policy council meetings that are coming up here very shortly. Those policy council meetings with ACCG is where this board should be actively participating in those meetings, letting their voice be heard, understanding which committee addresses these casinos and submit those recommendations to ACCG so that when session opens up in next year, 2027, ACCG is now lobbying on behalf of the Board of Commissioners in the state of Georgia saying, hey, we're noticing this all across the state of Georgia. Can you all put legislation in place that regulates these casinos and gas stations as well as, yes, that too. All of that, cap on rentals, anything that the state can do, that's what we've got. And I've done my best to try to be as active with ACCG as I possibly can because I understand from a state place, they can lobby on our behalf and get things changed that we want changed locally that we can't address. And so that's why it's so important that we are involved with these, with NACO, with ACCG. NACO lobbies on our behalf from a national level. ACCG lobbies on our behalf from a state level. They can help us get these state and federal issues that we can't handle on a local level. They can help get them addressed.
Shannon, while we're talking about the convenience stores, I know I had voiced a concern a couple months back maybe about the food service, unpackaged food service in the convenience stores. I don't know if they are required, maybe you can tell me, are they required for a food service permit and are they inspected if so? If not, I believe they need to be because some of them even have high top tables you can sit down and eat the food, the hamburger you buy, they prepare it in the back. You can sit down now, eat the hamburger at the table or at the slot machine.
Right.
So we're sure, don't get me wrong, I buy biscuits at the general store, right? So at the convenience store, but I've never thought about the food service permit or the inspection process for that. So something to think about going forward. I think if we don't have that, we need to start inspecting those. I would think.
Yes, Commissioner, so the convenience stores, the food service portion, or if they're serving or cooking any food or have commercial kitchens in there, environmental health is what permits those. So before we issue the building permits for their convenience center, they have to have approval from environmental health. So they go in to do inspections. I believe they do annual inspections as well.
They're doing
Okay,
it after
so-
the fact. They're
So
doing
they
it
are
after
being
the fact.
inspected.
Yes, they review the plans as well when they come in for the permit.
I think what you're talking about, people just kind of add it on and
Yeah.
bring it in their car and sell it.
One I like to buy food from near my home they have the Hunt Brothers Pizza, of course, and I'm not sure you consider that unpackaged, I don't know, but they're cooking chicken in the back and bringing it out in a box, they're cooking biscuits in the back and bringing it out, and I'm buying as fast as they can bring them out, but
Do they have a commercial kitchen in there?
I'm assuming they have to,
Yeah,
they
they have to have
can't fry chicken, you can't fry chicken.
I'm concerned about the ones that seem like they're just bringing it in, because there's one on 278 that has a van out front, everything's taped to the car saying that they got biscuits and all this kind of
Now,
stuff.
those are allowed, food service trucks are allowed in the county.
No, it's not a food service truck, it's a minivan where they're taping a poster board on there saying, biscuits here and something.
Okay, I don't wanna take up too much time, I just didn't know if there's a process that those are inspected as actually unpackaged food.
Correct, so if that complaint comes in, or if code enforcement observes that, we do report that to environmental health. And they'll go out to take care of it.
Thank
I
you.
think I misunderstood your question.
I just have a quick question, I'll use
Yes,
the mic.
Chairman.
You need the mic so they can hear you back.
Is there a way to put conditional use on the convenience stores, on some of the convenience stores? Like some sort of,
If they have to come to the board for a conditional use
Are they
permit.
getting zoning by right, are they getting zoning per right by being in a commercial area, or that's what he's asking?
Yeah, currently where they are now, they are by right uses, so this is why we strengthen the requirements, so we can put exactly what we wanna see in the requirements. So that guarantees us that that's what we're gonna get. So if there are any other changes the board would like to see, we can go ahead and make that amendment.
cause the tougher we make it,
Right.
the more they really have to meet with whatever you want. If they do it.
And what about the station without, gas station without pump? I mean, they started with pumps and then eventually they take some away and then no longer have pumps. So what are we doing about that? So, I mean, I
So
see a lot of that.
If they're going to discontinue the pumps, they have to decommission everything, and that goes through the state in terms of cleaning up everything, removing the tanks and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that goes through the state in terms of, cleaning up all that, and
I got one.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
So one of the things in District 5, that there is a gas station that does not have pumps, but still operates, so that's the question that.
Oh.
Yeah, same,
yeah,
that's
so,
what I'm asking.
okay, yeah, so the ordinance caters for C stores with or without pumps. So the main thing is the C store,
Okay.
right? So they can be with or without pumps, so yes, we do permit them that way, so some will just be a C store, convenience store, and some will have pumps. It just depends on what the applicant comes in with. So,
I mean, I actually had one in District 5 that the pumps were gone, everything was gone, and all was in their machines, and there wasn't, and you guys took care of it with code enforcement. But there was like hardly any convenience store items in the store left anymore.
Alright, and then we just listed examples of some of the prohibited uses we're looking at. So of course, cryptocurrency mining, data mining, vape shops, billboards. And that's just an example of some of them listed there. So this slide here looks at, it just gives you a brief synopsis. These are changes that were made to the list of allowed uses. So of course, dwelling units, we refined that. We included agro-tourism, made some changes to alternative tower structure, so bank, credit union. We reduced it, and the list, you do have a copy of this list in your packet. Of course, we added the incentives, added hunting lodges, because we have requests for hunting lodge, but it used to go on their special events, which wasn't really applicable, so we just created a requirement section for that. We added meat products, processing, mobile vending. So these are just the rental cabins. So the rental cabins, so we a year ago or so, on Island Shoals Road, we permitted, or the board had approved we had to put it on the special event center, but it was really like a weekend getaway resort where they had like a maximum of 20 of these small cabins. It was on one parcel of 100 acres, was like a nature retreat kind of thing. We actually did not have, a designation ordinance for that. So they were never going to be sold. They were also going to be owned by one person. It's all going to be like for short-term rental more or less. You go for a weekend, you go for a week, for a vacation to relax, hike in the sun. So this is kind of where this was heading, for rental cabin. So it's more or less part of like a holiday package kind of thing. So I think they are in the process of finishing that project. So it should be online soon.
Shannon, did we include rental cottages in that, or is that a different?
Short-term rentals?
Yes, because we've had proposals in the past where developers owned the land and they wanted to put small cottages not for sale, but for short-term rentals as an escape or getaway. So I didn't know if that entailed the same thing, if it included the cottages as well.
I do, I have a first slide coming up on that exact same thing with the cottages. So if there's gonna be like a regular 12-month lease, it'll just be like a normal rental.
Right.
But I am going to address that in terms of the cottages.
Okay.
Because we do have a proposal for the board on that. Because yes, it is in the market.
Okay.
But so, again, so we don't have the wellness center that we added, or wellness center retreat, because we've gotten inquiries about that. So these are just some of the new changes that you will see in the allowed uses section. So just to go through some of the changes we just discussed, so accessory buildings, we just defined them first. So you have 5 different types. So the A is just like is an addition to the main house. The little blue boxes, those are the additions or the accessory. So it'll be like a separate unit, but it's attached to the main house. It has its own bathroom, kitchen, and everything. The other model is B, which is above the garage. We have those currently, where they can do an accessories. It's detached, it's above the detached garage. That's B. C is detached garage as well, was just it's just like the whole thing would be the accessory dwelling units. And these are like in-law suites, granny flats, they're called sometimes. You know, right now the maximum, they can be 880 square feet, so they're gonna be tiny cottages, we didn't change that. D, we have a detached structure in the back. And E is like a ground floor conversion or like a basement conversion. So that'll be inside of the primary homes. These are like just the 5 versions of the accessory dwelling units we're looking at. Because we've been approached with these different items, and they just say, well, we don't really have, you know, a requirement for that. You can do like a separate structure and so on. But now we can consider those as accessory dwelling units. And that's just an example of one of the updates we made. The other thing we have are the Conex containers. The ordinance currently does not even address these containers. So we have been doing this on a case by case, where they've always only been allowed in agricultural zoning districts. We do not allow them in the single family zoning districts, multifamily, those other things. So it's always just the A, AR, or the RE zonings. But the question that always comes up is how many? So currently what we do is that if you have 10 acres or more, we start at 10 acres. If you have 10 acres or more, it has to be enclosed. So technically you don't see it, so you know, it doesn't exist. But we're just gonna go ahead and if you have 10 acres or more, you know, you're allowed to have like one on your lot. If you are a farm, this does not include that. So this picture is actually a farm. We just require that they need to be screened from the road, because we understand that farms will use, large scale commercial farms, you know, they'll probably use those for storage. But that is a way to contain, you don't want a landscape of just these containers everywhere in the county.
People are making houses out of them now.
Sorry?
People are making houses out of those now.
That's exactly what I was about to say, so.
It's an alternative house.
Yes, so does this address the container homes or just the containers without them being a home? Or is that in a separate space in our UDO where we address containers that are not homes and then containers that are turned in or converted into homes? Is that gonna be the same thing on a different place or different chapter?
So this is just for storage.
Okay.
So we
It's
better
agricultural
look at that.
storage.
They comment, because I don't know that I would want in my, you know, I have a lot of problems in my neighborhood because there's a lot of A out there. But then people will want to build this right next to a stick-built house.
Yes, we do have, so the container homes, those are considered alternative homes. The ordinance is silent on that. However, if someone were to bring in, they would have to bring in engineered drawings or something like that. It's not just like a regular stick-built home.
Right.
Those are
Would
specialized
that
homes.
require zoning or special use?
Well, we haven't addressed it. It's silent. The ordinance is silent on it right now, but which means they're technically prohibited. But we can look at including those.
I think we should, because I know I've had someone in the past approach me about those container homes, and I know we didn't have it in our ordinances. And so we wanna make sure that that's something that we're able to address. Because to my understanding, I know they were really pushing it for our veteran community, basically saying, hey, this is something that, you know, could be affordable for our veterans. You know, yes, well, they call them cottages now versus tiny houses, the politically correct, it's cottages.
I still call them down.
I know, that's why I stopped saying tiny house, because they're like, no, commercial business cottages, it's cottages, that's the political. But they were utilizing these container homes as a way to house our veterans who were unsheltered. And so this was a way to provide some shelter for them in a container home community, so to speak. So it may be something that I think we should address in this UDO, so we can make a note of that, where it's no longer silent, where we can put some stipulations and parameters around what areas we would want these to be. Of course, we wouldn't want them to say, you know, you got a single family subdivision, and then you got a container home sitting right, you know, in that subdivision. We don't want that. It would have to be almost like its own community and its own space, just like you would do with colleges.
Shane, let me ask you something. I'm sorry, James. So incidental use would include a builder dropping off one of those with his equipment, all his tools inside. That would be included incidental use, right?
Well, it must be incidental to agricultural uses, so,
So if I'm a builder and I carry around all my equipment in one of those, a smaller version of that, and I drop it at my job site where I'm building a house for a guy, and it's there for 2 months, is that considered incidental?
yes, so currently we do, we have allowed that in the past for like subdivisions, if they have to store things on site. But then that's gone when the subdivision is done, so that doesn't stay, so we do have temporary uses.
Okay.
But this is mostly geared towards,
Yeah.
single family
long
homes,
term.
people just want to have it in the backyard for storage, we don't allow it to every single district.
So screened from view of the road or screened from view of your next door neighbor?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, because we do have setbacks,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm good with that.
Right.
Yes, screen from view. Any other questions on, alright, so, chickens.
Yes.
So this is a lot of change we were looking at. So the issue my code enforcement team has been having is that currently chickens are lumped under livestock. And if you're outside a straight agricultural district, so if you're in RE or AR, livestock is allowed, you have 2 hoofed animals for every fenced acre. And that's difficult to quantify when it comes to chickens. So when my code team, they get a complaint, this person has 20 chickens, or, we go out there, we tell them, okay, you can't have all of these chickens here, and then the question always comes up, well, how many can I have? And the ordinance does not specifically address that. So I selected several acreages, these are all subdivisions, they're all zoned AR, and they're all subdivision lots, and it's just to show the different scenarios. We did modify this from the last time it was presented, so I'm just here to present another proposal to the board. But, so we have, fenced enclosure or coop is required, so regardless, you have to enclose, they have to put them in an enclosure. Right, enclosure or coop shall be 75 feet from residential structures and other properties, currently it's at 100 feet. This does not include commercial or general farming, so these are just for, single family residential lots that happen to be in agricultural zonings. So properties 2 acre or less, we look at 6 hens, because one of the comments we got is that apparently when you're buying the chicks, they come in batches of 3. So yeah, so if you were able to do that. So properties 2 to 5 acres can have 12 hens, 1 rooster, and 5 acres do not have a maximum. They'll be treated as a farm, right? But we have 2 roosters for those 2. And so the common complaints we get, it's a noise from the roosters. The second common complaint is the smell, right? And then of course the third complaint that we get is the quantity. So if you're living in a subdivision that's 0.74 acres, it's a tiny lot. We have other parameters that will also dictate this. So even though they are zoned AR, they can't meet the 75-foot setback on the sides. So this particular lot would not be able to have chickens. It's a small lot, they've got close neighbors. We do have to consider the neighbors as well. So unfortunately, something like this lot here wouldn't be able to do even though it has the zoning. And that's because of how small it is. The second section, so we look at 2 acres or more, so the 1.75 acre lots, it's a little bigger. They can meet the setback. They can meet the setbacks, 0.75 feet, 75 feet, 75 feet. So they can actually have their enclosure somewhere in the middle there, and it wouldn't necessarily offend their neighbors. It's far off of the property line. So they can have the 6 hens, no roosters at
They're
that
not
point.
2 acres, they're 1.7 acres.
Yeah, I just pulled it as an example, but they will fall in the, it was intended to fall in the 2 acre category. 2 to 5 acres, yeah.
We'll have to, we need to look at that one, because it's 2 acres, that's like right at 2 acres.
Yeah, it's just almost there, yeah.
But still, you gotta look at it and see, are they gonna be 75 feet off the back too?
Yeah.
Of that neighbor?
Yes, ma'am. 75 foot off of all boundary lines where you could place your enclosure.
Then I guess then when you got enclosure and fixed will be 7 feet, you need to put like 2 there, too, in that bullet point. Because if they're not quite 2, so you can't really go down to 2, because it's not 2. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the intent is to be from 2 acres, so that might have been a bad example.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, because that
Those are
was
nice
gonna
lots.
say, you let my neighbor have it, and he's at 1.7, I'm at 1.6.
Yeah, that should, yeah, unless I put the number over there. But the next one, 3 acres, so that's between, that's the 2 to 5 acres this one here. So they can have 12 hens and 1 rooster. And then of course, the 14 acres, anything over 5 acres. So technically, this is a subdivision up there, they can have a full-fledged farm. So that's something to think about. No maximum, so,
Shannon, can I make a suggestion?
yes, sir.
I really do appreciate you and your team's common sense work and approach to this. It makes total sense to me. But I'm gonna suggest we leave whatever those ordinances are in place right now, unchanged. You know, it's just become a, you know, we become, I became a chicken Nazi. So, it's just, you know, cause I voted, I was in favor of a little more common sense, but, it's gonna cause more issues than it fixes, I think. And my suggestion is, whatever the ordinances are right now, and I don't know what they are, and the public don't either, but leave them just like they are, would be my suggestion. I'm only 1/5 of this whole deal, so, thank you.
Yeah, the problem we're having with that, Commissioner Edwards, is that we're not able to enforce on the other complaints. We're not able to make a recommendation.
I think we can have just as
Yeah.
many people on the western end of the county that are irritated with chickens as we have people that are on the rural side of the county that are irritated with our chicken thing.
The
So I
chances,
think you have to
We've
find,
got
a
Eastern-
happy medium.
We've got eastern people on, I've got complaints about chickens on the eastern side too, so, on more than 5 acres. So, there can be issues, but, you know, I just don't, people don't know what the current ordinances are, and what you're doing is assigning numbers to acreage, and it just don't compute with the general public, and, you know, and to be fair, common sense says if my home sits in the middle of 43 acres, right? So my chickens aren't gonna bother my next door neighbor's chickens. These are long out, but I do have people who are not in subdivisions, in District 1, in neighborhoods, not subdivisions, in close proximity, and there have been complaints. They call me and want to know what they can do about their neighbor's chickens. And I say, well, you know, I call animal control, is all I can tell you, or code enforcement maybe, but it's about all we can do. But I just don't, I don't see well, there may be a point, but I'm all in favor of leaving the livestock ordinances, whether it be chickens, zebras, or turkeys, or alligators, whatever they are, just leave them what we have in place for now. Thank you.
Can I add real quickly, Shane?
I don't know.
In regards to the chickens, does this ordinance actually specify where they should be located on the property? Because I can tell you, just recently had a resident in District 2 contact me and tell me that a resident had chickens in the front yard, in a chicken coop in the front yard. And so does this ordinance actually address where it should be located on the property?
It does, so that would come on the accessory structures.
Okay,
And you can't have them in the front yard.
that's what I thought.
Right, so, but the reason why this has come up, just to, you know, it was just for Commissioner Edwards, is my code team, they've come to me constantly. What do we do? It's something they cannot enforce. The chances of someone having 2 acres and up getting a complaint is rare. The issue is on the smaller agricultural lots, you know, in subdivisions, and
So your team is getting complaints?
yes,
Oh.
yes. And they get up there and the people say, well, how many chickens can I have? And we don't have an answer because it's not addressed.
So we need direction from the board on how to approve.
Yeah, I've seen somebody with a 1/4 acre want to have 10 chickens.
Yeah.
And I think the example I was just utilizing, I think this home might be on an acre, maybe an acre and a half, where they have chickens, and it's probably about 10 anywhere between 5 to 10 in the front yard, visible from the street, even though it's next to a subdivision, but it's down a street where there are homes all along that street. And to my understanding, code enforcement was called. And so I don't know when, in those instances, when code enforcement is called, do we go out and tell them you can't have it in the front, it has to be moved to the back? And like you said, we haven't even addressed what the acreage is. I see you said
Well,
probably 2 acres or less can have 6 hens.
That's what we're proposing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, for that particular instance, yes, they will have to move the structure from the front yard, and, like right now, we don't have a quantity for that, so.
Okay.
You know, we've just been doing it case by case,
Okay.
and we're trying to get the number, if we have something in the ordinance, what my code team has asked for is, like, we need something in the ordinance that we can use to back us up when we go to tell folks, you know.
Something I learned a long time ago is you can't leave anything up to common sense.
Right.
Okay, so, you know, I think the people were upset about the number of hens and the number of roosters. I think when you get out to 5 acres, you're saying that we don't care, it doesn't matter, you know, you can have as many chickens as you want on 5 acres. I think there has to be some kind of guidelines, just like we're talking about right now, because I think that sometimes some of us look at it from a rural standpoint, some of us look at it from a tiny lot standpoint. If I lived on a less than an acre lot, I do not want the person next door with a bunch of chickens, okay, I'm sorry, that's just me. You know, I live on 10 acres, if I want chickens, I can have chickens, I mean, but I think that's where you make a decision on where you move and what you buy and where you live, it's usually how it's been with animals. I have a neighborhood in my district that the houses are 800,000 plus, and they have a pig running around the street that gets out every day.
Oh.
So there has to be, you cannot leave it up to common sense. Because I don't think you should have a pig running around your neighborhood. This is a tight neighborhood. So I think that we do have to have some parameters. And then like you said, the 5 acres, the 10 acres, typically those don't tend to be the one that are complaining as much. But the smaller tracts, you know, that is a problem. I mean, it's a bigger problem, I think, than we all think it is. And yes, so what I would like to do is just take this ordinance out to the chicken people, let them take a look at it, and they think that we need to make some adjustments. But we do have to have a happy medium on both sides. We need the people that don't want chickens and people that do want chickens. I tell everybody that calls me and yells at me about chickens, is there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance in everything that we do. And this is one of those areas where it has to be a balance.
Commissioner, for the pig that you have, I think that's a division zone agricultural residential. I remember they're allowed 2 animals per fenced acre, which includes pigs. So that's something we need to look at, is let me know. But yeah, so this is what we're proposing. Of course, it's not the final, but you know, definitely you will have feedback on that. Okay, so Commissioner Mason, cottage. So this is like a cottages, tiny homes, multi-family horizontal. So
That's what we went to visit.
yeah, so this would so if we were to go, we have proposed to put like tiny homes or cottages in the ordinance. It requires our multi-family zoning. We don't really have any parcels with multi-family zoning right now, so they would have to come to the board for that zoning. Must be on sewer, and we also permit them, you know, in the MSR district and the mobile home subdivision districts, but they need a cup for that. So this is not a by right use by any means. And it doesn't have to be approved if it's not appropriate at the time that it comes before the board. And of course, we're putting in aesthetic requirements. So the reason behind this is we're also trying to consider, you know, affordable homes. So we've had a lot of residents come in and they've asked for variances from the 1,800 cubic square feet. Often they're citing, you know, financial hardships. So they come for variance to reduce the minimum heated square foot. So the smallest one we have is 1,000, but that's only found in the agricultural district. Everything else is like 1,250, the most common size is 1,800. These are the minimum sizes. So we're often going before the board of zoning appeals for a reduction in the heated square footage. So this would be an affordable option that's manageable. It would be, you know, located on like a single, well, it could be owner occupied, or it could go back to the cabin rentals that Commissioner Mason had mentioned earlier. So These are just individual cottages, they're not attached or anything. This is actually cottages one in DeKalb County. So this is an example that we can look at. I found one in Seattle, Washington. So these homes are usually around 1,000 cubic square feet to 1,300. You know, they're detached. And then over here we've got, this is in Columbia, Georgia, courtyard cottages. So mostly they have like a cottage, then they're surrounded by the courtyards in the center, a shared space. I know we put strict like applications in place, you know, for aesthetics and landscaping and that kind of thing, just to make sure it's a managed and controlled environment. So we are proposing that when I say, so this is if, you know, if it's owner occupied, you can have down here. So for the next one, we're looking at, so multifamily, these are detached cottages, but it's like on one lot with one owner. So essentially they are rentals. So instead of going vertical and having 300 units, you can go the horizontal way and have less density. So that's just a proposal we're looking at. So these are detached, those are attached. We actually approved a similar subdivision to this off of City Pond Road, maybe 3 years ago or so. They haven't moved forward with it, but they had attached villas like that, and it was all rentals. They haven't built it out as yet, but so
That was a senior, wasn't it?
the senior, yes, the senior housing. They haven't moved forward, but that conditional use is still in place if the developer comes back to do it. So that's what it was gonna look like. The same builder that did this one here is the one that proposed it at the City Pond. So that
can't be converted to vertical rentals, so right?
no, once the board approves it, then that has it. So it is an alternative to going vertical and having towering apartments, and it does address the housing affordability. You know, starter homes, unfortunately, they're starting to get 250, 300,000. I don't know, you know. So we do have to look at the other side of the coin. But if we're going to have these smaller homes, it's better to have them managed and have them, you know, have standards in place for them.
Can we have a cottage zoning instead of putting it under multifamily? Is there a way to do that?
It'll be
Since we wanna
tiny.
eliminate multifamily?
It'll be a tiny home. It'll currently all the tiny homes. So yeah, we can change it to cottages. But the
Like a
zoning
cottage
is a
zoning. Could we not have a cottage zoning or something?
It would be the same
special
as a
use?
multi-family. Yeah, but since it's not by right use, that's the only difference with this. So they would have to come before the board.
To have a condition.
Yes. And that way it would give citizens the opportunity, you know,
Voice their
hear
concerns.
their concerns, or, you know, this is good, they're gonna be affected if they're living next to this. But it is an alternative to having it as an apartment complex, while addressing any housing concerns that we have.
So, Shannon, you talked about rentals, and you know, this has been a hot topic within our community by the developers coming in and initially saying that they want to build multifamily or whatever type of development, and they're gonna sell these homes, but somehow it turns into rentals. So, for the public, is there anything that we can do as the Board of Commissioners in this UDO to address whether or not these properties can become rentals or not? Can we address that? Is that something we can state, no, they can't become rentals, or they can only be for sale? Is that something that we can put as a mandate in our UDO?
I am going to reserve my answer on that, because
Okay.
we're still researching it.
Okay.
I know there are state requirements in place, that we can dictate if you rent or own a home.
Okay.
But we are looking to see if there are local parameters. I know one thing we're looking at is on the preliminary plan application. We're gonna have the applicant indicate up front, in writing this time, because now they're just telling us, oh, it's gonna be owner occupied, and then they
Correct.
switch it us in the end. So that's gonna be a box they check off, owner occupied or rental, and you know, maybe we may have some legal footing on that when it comes up, if they switch on us. But we are still researching that, because there are a lot of state requirements in place, in terms of whether you can rent or, you know, own homes or, yeah.
Because I know historically, it's been explained that this board can't determine whether or not it's a rental or owner occupied, But if that particular developer implements a homeowners association, then that homeowners association can put it within their covenant, hey, we only wanna allow 10% or 15% rental, and that's how they enforce, whether they're gonna be rentals or not. And I think from what I have heard because I have conversations with my HOAs in District 2 on a regular basis, what I've heard them say is that they have kind of somewhat shied away from that, only because what if they get to that, they put in that covenant and say, okay, only 10% of this subdivision can be rentals. Well, now they maxed that 10%. Well, what if an emergency happens where someone, they don't want to lose their home, they don't want to give it up, but they may have to move away or something may happen, whatever that situation is, but they still want to rent it to someone. Well, now they can't. They are forced to sell it because they've reached that max in the HOAs, and so they don't want to tell homeowners what you can and cannot do with your property. And so HOAs have somewhat steered away from putting that into their covenants for that reason. And I know I've publicly asked developers, is this something that you can do up front as a developer to put that in place? And the developers that I've asked from a public space when they were looking to develop a residential development would refuse to actually state that they are not willing to put that as a mandate for their specific development. And I don't know if that's because they don't want to tell homeowners what they can and can't do as well. So the developers shy away from it, the HOAs are shying away from it. So legally, is there something that we can do? Okay.
Because it does complicate because you're basically taking the right of that homeowner to do what they want with their home. So I think the issue is with the large investment companies that are swallowing up, all these homes and then just flipping them and renting it, as opposed to an individual homeowner who's used his water relocate and rent their home. So we're still exploring options to see if there's anything we can do with the local level on that.
Here's an area, and I think I can help with that, is it's become very expensive for HOAs to take people to court, and that's part of the problem because of the legal systems that we have. And I think that one thing that I don't think that we've done a great job of, and nothing, I think it's very confusing for the development department, is, you can have deed restrictions. So the county can put, we used to do this 25 years ago when I was in the division, we put deed restrictions on these developments. And if you put a deed restriction on there, it runs with the land forever, okay? So you can put those on zoning, you can put deed restrictions. And I think that's something we did 25 years ago, we put deed restrictions. And if you go back and read some of them, you can see them on there. So I think that's something that we need to explore that. The other thing on these type developments would be exterior standards. We have got to do a good job on exterior standards. If we do a great job on exterior standards, like some of these other communities have, then the one on the bottom is very stark. They will wind up looking like a cottage community, and that's what you want. There's nothing wrong with having these type of communities. I mean, there's a great one up in Watkinsville that is a senior community like this, and they're like 700 square feet, and it is a great thing. It's cool. So I agree with this concept, and I don't know, and going back to Commissioner Edwards, if we want to do away with the multi-family apartment thing, then we have to look at these zoning codes, because you're putting this under multi-family, and I'm not sure how we do that. That's a whole nother conversation, but I think that, as the values have continued to grow and everything, you're going to see these, but the biggest thing we can do as a county to protect ourselves is exterior standards. And landscaping standards. I see people getting a CO now for their house and there's not one bush in the yard, and I thought we already had that in there. And I'm gonna have to get a CO without, because other counties, you gotta have shrubbery in front of the house and things like that before you get a CO, and we don't do that here. So we gotta look at that too. That was definitely on my list. But deed restrictions, and that's different than HOA.
Okay, that's good. Right.
Mac, one quick question to Chanel. Is there any way too that we can, and this is a random question, and I saw you all dealing with this in the last meeting. Is there any way we can tighten the timelines? It's crazy to me to see builders coming to build on something that was approved 3 years ago, or looked at 3 years ago when everything has changed. Commissioner Cooper calls me on that all the time, like, how can they do this? This was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, things have totally changed now, so is there a way we can tighten those timelines?
I am addressing that later on in a later slide.
Yeah, we did add that.
Yeah.
For this meeting.
Right, so this is for, again, these are for the allowed uses, article, chapter 3. Just some of the changes we're looking at. Chapter 4 is now the core district. Community-oriented residential development. Some of the changes that we've looked at this year is that we're no longer able to apply multiple overlays with the CORD. So the 2 previous CORDs that came to the board, what happens is they applied the open space overlay, which further increased their density. So we removed that ability. So when you go to the CORD, it's just the CORD, however density that comes with. So commercial and non-residential portion of the CORD must be completed before the final 1/3 residential COs are issued. Because we run into a lot of problems that are mixed use, and the CORD is essentially a mixed use development. But what we have happening is that they come in, they build a residential out, and then somebody else is supposed to come do the commercial, and it may never happen. Right, an example we have now is the apartments outside of Newton High School. That's a mixed use commercial and residential, but we had nothing in place to make the developer start the commercial. So now they've almost done with the residential portion, and I don't know when they're gonna come with the commercial. So, and this is gonna be applied like throughout the ordinance, not just for the CORD, it's gonna be in the overlay districts as well. The other thing we're looking at adding aesthetic designs to the CORD, which will be similar to the overlays, right? So architectural shingles and the different outside finishes, brick, something we want to see, vinyl and so on. And we have them allowed in REAR and R1 and R2 districts. And currently the densities are per on the line in zoning district. However, there is a section in there that would allow the board to approve a different density if so desired. But it defaults to the zoning district, whatever the underlying zoning is. These are the major changes we were proposing to the CORD commission.
Hold on. This is the one I hate the most, okay? First of all, I did a deep dive on this one, so get ready. All right, so the CORD should not be allowed, this is where we're having a problem in 4 and 3 right now. The CORD should not be allowed in any residential district. Bam, take it out. We have to fix that. You got it in every district, it can be in there. It's allowed in A, AR, those are every residential district we have. It cannot be allowed in every one of those. So I think that's number one thing you gotta change, because you can put that anywhere.
This is a mixed use, which you want to be in non-residential districts.
No, it can be in a residential district, but not every residential district that we have.
Well, because so currently the ordinance had it also in they had it in multifamily, they had it in mobile home subdivisions, they had it in mixed use, and we took those, we're removing those. It will not be reflected on what you have printed. So we took out all those bottom.
It says the draft allows the CORD on a tract as small as 10 acres in any residential district. It authorizes single family, 2-family dwellings, 3-family dwellings, and multifamily dwellings.
Yes, and we are changing that. So we just restricted it to just these. So you're not wanting it in these either, because we have other residential districts that we took out.
We need to look at every one of those residential areas and see if that's where it needs to be. I think it probably should be more in an R1 district, because R1 is our smallest lot sizes that we have. So a CORD could be in something that's already tight. You don't want to take something that's 100 acres and allow somebody to put a CORD out there. Okay, so let's look at those, all right? You could put, the way it's done is the multifamily dwelling setting can occupy no more than 30% of the total acreage. That's not the same as limiting multifamily to 30% of the total units. So I've got all this for you to look at, but apartments or townhouses are mostly intense developed at 30% of the site. So I think we gotta fix that. It's 30% of the units, not 30% of the site. okay? And then, the chords have to have really heavy design, aesthetics, compatibility, less burden on the public services that we have. And definitely we have to put in all our ordinances that your swampland and your utilities cannot be part of your calculations, okay? Because everybody wants to give us swampland and utilities as green space, and that does not work, okay?
I didn't put it up here, but yes.
Okay. And then, so I think that you have to, they must take out all of that. We just had that situation happen this year also, where they use the power lines and the swamp and everything as part of their density calculations, and that should not be, as far as that goes. Because that development could have been 40 lots instead of 96 lots, if they had been using the right calculations and not being able to use the power lines and the wetlands and all that as part of their density calculations. So that would solve some of those problems. So I think that this type of housing should require a separate zoning map amendment to a district that applies to these. The multifamily part of it has to be capped. I mean, just a lot of, I won't go through the whole list here, but there's a lot of that. So infrastructure, those should be on sewer.
It is.
Okay, all right, but sewer not coming later on, sewer now. Because we can't do it on what ifs. And then that's why they sit out there for 5 or 6 years, because they're waiting for the sewer to come to them, or they're trying to do different things to get it.
Are they on the zoning now?
Yeah, zoning now, because they're gonna flip it 18 times.
And again, the core is not a by right use.
Right.
So, if it's not the appropriate time or the appropriate circumstances, the board is not obligated to grant it.
Right now, our draft allows up to 50% of the utility units easements to be included in the open space. That should not be at all. Let's see, that means the county would have to approve these developments as advertising, preserving 1/3 of the property, which is really preserved land. So I know that's going kind of like this over everybody's head, but we want to make sure, and also how high they are, and then there's a lot of things about these courts that I do not like. They're too open, they're too general. Everybody's asking for one. If you look at the last zonings that we've had for a while now, everybody comes in wanting a court because you can do so much with it. We don't have the right restrictions on it, and there's a lot of loopholes in this one. So when I run, reports to see where all our loopholes are, this one comes back with like 8 pages of loopholes. And our approval authority is not strong enough on these. And these tend to be the issues that 3 and 4 are having right now with these courts. These are some of their concerns and their stresses that are going on in those districts. And like you said, we're not just trying to protect our districts, I'm trying to protect the whole county. 3, 4, 2, 1, all those kind of things. So it doesn't matter where it is, we have to have the same rules for the entire county. So we want to make sure that putting one more development on Harold Dobbs Road or one more development on Coral Road is not going to work. And I think that district's split now between 3 and 4, Donna Pace, all that. So this is a real important one that we have to focus on. And I'm not sure that this is the other one is that open space conservation. I can't even say it, conservation. That one is the worst one we have. That is a huge loophole, so we gotta work on these.
Okay, so don't type in that.
I'll keep trying.
Absolutely. So, I'm sorry, any other questions on the court or? I think it's on, the green light is on, it's on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, man, what I wanted to say was that, I think one of the reasons I think we have, the meetings we have had, I think, Commissioner Long said we had about 3 or 4 meetings and talking about it. But out of those meetings, we never did find anything. You help me if I'm wrong, because I know you've been every day across every T and down every I. Was how can we give some relief to our constituents, the citizens, especially on 4 Road and 3 and 4, and we still drawing kind of on a dead end. Because if we stand there from my taking in what we've been talking about, and I'm gonna get back with some lawyers and some other lawyers just to talk about what can we do, even though I probably go in thinking there's nothing that we can do. And even if we were to, we just gonna take it to court, we just be taking the good money, going out the door, because it's gonna happen anyway. But, so I'm trying to find anything, and everything I can to, hopefully still try to slow down, this subdivision.
Commissioner Edwards had a question.
I don't need that thing. Hey, Shane, so I'm worried that, would a Cord district within an area zoned agricultural, that would almost certainly create a zoning island, correct? What's it called? A zoning island. What, isn't that what we call
Yes.
it? Yeah, I mean, so, and that, we try to stay away from those. We don't wanna create those independent zoning islands. So I'm worried about a Cord in an agricultural area.
Right, and again, it's not a by right zoning. So if it's not
I think
appropriate at the
it's still
time,
serious
yeah.
if we have it in there wrong.
Right, so we,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm suggesting we take it out.
I do too. I mean, you
So just remove it altogether.
because also with the land use map, you got areas that you're acting like you want them in there, and they're in the rural areas. I mean, that's what I was saying in the beginning, that I wasn't being negative, I was saying in the beginning, that it's gotta be cohesive. It's gotta be cohesive, so we can't say, one area and then not other areas. It's gotta be cohesive, so you can't have a map that says, oh, this is great for this, and this is great for this, and this is great for this, over here, 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 which is what we have, these little stars all over the place. But then we're saying, oh, no, you can't have it there. But then, right here, you're saying you can have it there. So that's my point, is that it has to be, they have to be, most counties designate that little area you can have it. I think we're trying to do that, but I think it's too open-ended, and that's where we get in trouble with the open-ended.
So if we were to suggest that cores can go only to X kind of, it's going to be adjacent to X zoning,
Yeah,
that would control it better instead of having those
yeah,
little pockets
right.
of,
And then they could still ask, but our ordinance said, I mean, people can ask, but our ordinance for legal purposes and long-term purposes says you can only have it in R1, near R1, then you can't have it out in,
that would work, that would
yeah,
work.
so you can do whatever you want, but if we turn you down, then we have a legal right to turn you down, because it's only supposed to be near R1.
Okay, yes, that would actually
So
work.
that's,
So we can
those
specify-
are the cohesive things I'm
Yeah.
talking
Versus
about.
all of.
Yeah, we can definitely specify which zoning it could be adjacent to.
Right.
Because right now, we have, oh, it's all over, just come ask us, and
Right.
if we say no, then you sue
That's right.
us, and you win, or we win, or,
So
that's exactly what you try to say is, let's don't just keep throwing good money after bad, let's make sure that we set a plan of how this is supposed to look.
Yeah. We can definitely put that requirements in. And that was control, spot zoning, that's what it was on here.
Spot
It was called spot
Spot
zoning.
zoning,
Yeah.
yeah. Or an island.
and islands are with the city annexations.
But yes, that would definitely manage, where the cores can go.
It's in on the map.
Alright, so that's chapter 4, we're halfway through chapter 5.
Thank you.
So chapter 5 deals with the overlays, and I want to address the watershed overlays first, and then we're gonna go into some of the other overlays that we've made changes to. I think we have a total of maybe 12 or 13 overlays altogether, in our ordinance. Some of them we are proposing to remove, I'll go through those. But, so on the screen here, we are looking at, alright, so these are our watershed overlays. Alright, so these are our watershed overlays. So we have our small watershed overlays, Cornish Creek, which is Lake Martin area. The proposed Bear Creek Reservoir, that's kind of in hiatus right now. Bacons Creek Watershed, City Pond. So we have the riparian buffers, because this came with the buffers. Currently it's a 100-foot natural undisturbed buffer, and then it's a 150-foot impervious buffer for undisturbed, right? Structures, so you cannot build.
Can you explain to everybody what a riparian right buffer is?
So riparian are just,
We know it.
riparian, yeah, that's what are just your natural buffers, your trees, your bush, you can't disturb that at all. And then an additional 50 feet, you can't build in that, so you can have your septic, you can't have your house, and anything. So now you're at 150 feet from the rivers, the streams, the lake, any kind of state waters, what's on your, that comes onto your property. And then for Lake Varner, there's an additional 40-foot buffer if you're on a reservoir. Right, so it would be the Bear Creek Reservoir and the Lake Varner Reservoir, so they're actually 190 feet away. I do not believe water resources is wanting to change that. So these are the current buffers in place. The minimum sizes in these small watersheds is 2 acres currently. So regardless of what zoning they're in, this will take precedence. Then we have our large watershed districts, Alcovy River, Little River, same riparian buffers again. They're also 100 feet undisturbed. So that's your natural vegetation. You cannot grade or clear that. If you're in a development node, that's your future land use map, you have a 50-foot undisturbed natural buffer, and then another 50-foot that you can minimally disturb. So if you want to put like a trail, or something like, you can't take heavy equipment in there and bulldoze everything. So essentially, you're still going to have, that 150-foot buffer for that. And then you have your impervious surfaces structures, which is a 100-foot setback from streams and lakes. So most properties in this district will have a 150-foot buffer, regardless of which combination of that they fall into. So it means nothing. So if you have your stream or your lake, the house has to be at least 150 feet back before you can start building.
We had a zoning that came through, and they were in the Alcovy River watershed, or maybe a Little River, I'm not sure which one it was, and they wanted to put a core there. Okay, and so if you go down this little chart, you look, it says minimum 2 acres, okay? How did we get there?
Sure. So they
applied for the zoning, why wouldn't you say, nope, doesn't work, X.
No.
So
And
now
the
we're back
other
to
one.
that map with the little dots I'm talking about, right?
Those are the flows, the future land use map.
Right, that's what I'm talking about, but
Right.
that's where you have development node and different things on there, so that's where they are getting around that, is because here's another loophole, the DN, that's a loophole.
Yeah, so those are found at the most major junctions, which is where those 2 cords were. So one of them used a development node to reduce to 1 acre, and the other one used the open space overlay to reduce to 1 acre.
Can we take I'm sorry.
But neither of those can be, they have to be sewer.
They would have to be sewer for that kind of dense development.
And that trumps the 2 acre minimums, is that correct? Even in the watershed areas?
If the infrastructure is not in place, we will move forward with that. We won't get the approval, to move forward.
Why does it come before us then and say that we get a report saying that it can if they do this, and this? I mean, I just don't see how we get to that point when all of these rules are there and we're still getting to that point, and we did.
Yes, because we had document letters from the city that, indicated that they would have that capacity.
That capacity is communicated to the developer as capacity at that moment. The capacity could be diminished within the next 3 weeks, and that capacity could no longer exist for you to have that
Can we
development.
not change those letters?
That comes from the water departments.
So early in the development project, all it states is infrastructure is there. It doesn't even give you a capacity, it's just infrastructure is there. That's it. Not even take the product that is gonna be sent to it. It just, hey, there's a sewer line that's in the vicinity, that's it. Not sizes, not anything, until the developer comes in with a specific, with a plan and, flow projections, that then you get into the engineering part that we have, that have the capacity at that juncture. But in the beginning, when they get that letter, it's just for infrastructure.
But then she just said that the reason why I got forward is because they had that letter.
Yeah.
So see how does it go together?
So one of the things that we're working on with the city, the Water and Sewer Authority, is coming up with a specific letter at the request of the project owner, is that you have to come in at that early onset of the project with specific requirements that you would need to get the letter that can go on for the future development, for the approval, for the permits, that you have to come in with the end user or estimated flow projections in order to get this particular letter. So the will serve letter is the letter that we're talking about now versus a oil capacity letter versus infrastructure letter. So we are coming up with some type of different. And Shayna routine is a part of that discussion as well.
And the last Watershed, we have in a large district, the Yellow River, Southern River, Murray Creek, these are mostly on the west side of the county. So they also have the same 150-foot setback requirements for impervious surface as well as your natural buffers. But they do not have so the minimum lot size is default, so whatever the underlying zoning is for those two. And in 2022, we made a revision to the,
Where is Murder Creek?
it's down the bottom of my hands, somewhere down, yeah. It's a little small one.
Yeah, it's, Charlie Elliott, out that way, I think.
It's not often, it doesn't come up often, but it does exist.
Okay.
And so, back in 2022, we made an amendment to the Lake Jackson lots to remove that 150-foot setback, because we were always going before the BZA for those lots, because many of those lots are so tiny, they're not even 100 feet deep. So we have defaulted it down to the Georgia Power 50-foot buffer. So those owners will have to constantly keep going before the board. Generally, if you're going before the board for variances all the time, then that's an indication to address your ordinance. And we did that with the Lake Jackson lot. So that's the only exception to the setbacks that we have currently. And they were put in place to protect the waterways. There are exceptions, there's a hardship, you can go to the BCA for that. And they make a decision based on what is presented to them, if they're going to grant that variance or not. You want a question? So we want to the other overlay districts. So open space, conservation, overlay districts. So some of the major changes we're looking at, again, we'll not use this to apply to other districts. So the Westfield subdivision, they apply to open space on top of the sale overlay district, which is why they got those small lots in that density. We've removed that capacity now. So you won't be able to apply this on another overlay. You can go on a raw piece of land and you just get the density that it allows you instead of getting that additional density by doubling up. Same thing happened with one of the cohorts that came before, so they used this as another overlay on top of what they had to get that additional density in smaller lots. So we are removing that, we have to look at the burden on our infrastructure and capacity and so on that we're looking at. So there's no more increase in density allowance for conserving additional open space. So currently open space requires 33% to be conserved. You can multiply your density by, I think, 1.5 if you save up to 50%. We're gonna remove that requirement, just keep it at the 33% for now. Utility easements will now be credited to the 33%. We have impervious surfaces, exclusions, like the parking lots, driveways, buildings, conservation space will not be counted towards the open space. Wetlands, floodplain, rocky areas, rock formations may be just 10%, because the county does want to preserve those areas, not destroy them, and they're environmentally sensitive, but 10% might, is probably what the maximum you're gonna get. After that, you're gonna have to make sure you're conserving areas that can actually be used by the residents. We have an increased accessibility to open space, so it has to be within at least a quarter-mile walking distance of the residences in that development. So basically, you can walk there and enjoy that space, in your recreation time. Some open space, obviously for the use of residents, as I just said. If you're gonna do a mixed-use development within an open space conservation subdivision, we're gonna require a code for that. And then we're only allowing this to be applied in AR, RE, R1, R2 districts.
I think we got to look at that too, what it's allowed in.
So I think that was,
Because where that comes into play is you have homes all around this particular land where there are 10-acre lots or 5-acre lots, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and wants to do a conservation overlay, and then it becomes a tight development mixed in amongst all the other people that live on 10 acres or whatever. So I think that's where you have to really look at this, and even in the other districts that have raw, there's still a lot of raw land in 3 and 4. I know y'all don't think there is, but there is, maybe not 4, but they come in the middle of that. You're a little tighter to see. What happens is they come into the middle of that, And, District 2 has a lot of still open land out there. They're going in the middle of that, and they're putting another type development in the middle of it. So I think we have to look at some of these zoning classifications and to make sure that these are allowed in there. I know that it's supposed to be a conservation thing, but it does not feel like a conservation thing when you're getting hit with those tight subdivision with less than quarter acre lots. Less than 3/4 acre lots next to, not to lower density, sorry.
So currently you could go down to half the lot size. Before, if you added another layer on top of that, you could go less than that. Now it'll just be, so if you're 2 acre, you go down to 1 acre.
Okay.
It does not change the number of houses you can have in there. So let's say it's, 50 houses, even though you go down to 1 acre lots, it's the same 50 houses. You're just concentrated in one area in development, and then we have the open space there. So it doesn't increase the density. That's one thing it doesn't do. It allows you to build around challenging and sensitive environmental areas. So that's currently in place right now. But what has been increasing and pushing the density up is when they put another overlay on top of it. So that's what we're discontinuing. So it just stays to the.
I have to have a session with you and look at one of those, because I still think that that's gotta have a little.
I know it doesn't appear that way, but you don't get it. It's not additional houses you get in there. It's just smaller lots, but it's the same density they have to maintain.
So is that why we're getting, single family, townhomes, and all of these different types of diverse in one specific subdivision because of those multiple overlays?
Yeah, but the core itself allows for those various types of houses. It's essentially a mixed use development.
Right.
So it does allow you to have single family, townhomes, multi-family, which is why we propose that the 2 cores we receive. So it does allow you to get percentages of, that you can have for those in there. But they're still held to the base densities for those. So whatever the single family density is in there, they have to stick to that. Whatever it is for the townhomes, they have to maintain that. So it doesn't allow you to get anything denser, but it's allowing for a mix of homes in there.
So is that something, and I guess this is a question for the board, is that something that we want to continue? Because I know from some of the feedback that I've received, some residents don't like to drive into their subdivision, and then when you go to the back, there's townhomes back there. They would rather it be all single family or all townhomes and not have that mixed use in one subdivision. So, and like I said, I guess that's a question for this board. Is that something that we want to continue, or we want to discontinue having that mixed use? And then too, in addition to that, I know what we're seeing is, for example, when an initial development comes before and that developer basically runs out of money, and then another developer comes in and takes over, it looks like 2 different subdivisions. So they're not even building the second phase the exact same way that the first phase looks like. So we're not holding that second developer to that standard.
Yes, we found that has occurred, especially some of the older subdivisions have come back online. And what happens is when it was done way back in the day, those stipulations were not put in place for the whole subdivision as a whole. So if it's not put in place, it will default back to what the base ordinance says, that they can build. So that is something, so when we are, that is something we look at. We've been looking at that when we do our preliminary plans, to make sure we have, conditions in place that would address something like that. To address the other, the mixed use, it won't be a by right use in this overlay anymore. So the one thing will be by right is if they're going to come in and you said do like just single family, or comes or whatever, if they want to mix it, it requires a couple.
Okay.
So that residents can have an opportunity to weigh in on if that's something they would want to see.
Because right now we had it by right, so now we're taking that by right away, and they would have to come back for conditional use if they want to add a different type of development within that subdivision.
Correct.
Excellent.
What happens with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of these neighborhoods that, I know going forward, we need to fix that, because, we had a housing crisis, and then a lot of subdivisions were left open, and then, you know, you build that beautiful thing in the front, and then, like you said, going back, maybe it's still single family homes, but it's not the same as the front.
That's right.
So addressing that up front at the preliminary planting stage, or in the final plan, where we can put those, we can put aesthetics in place.
Yeah.
You know, this is the look.
And you can say that any continuous, phase of this project shall
Must
be
be
held to
exactly the
these
same.
covenants, these deed restrictions.
Yes.
So we can say those structural designs that the first phase had is mandated in the second and or third phase from any additional developer that comes back in and continues where that first developer left off, that those structural designs are exactly the same.
Or come back for the board for a hearing.
Right, so when it goes to the preliminary plan board planning commission, that would be in the recommended conditions.
But that doesn't come to the board of commissioners again, does it?
No, that is, it's administrative, and the PC makes a final decision on that, so they would have the authority to implement those conditions.
So would it be something that we have to implement in the UDO in writing, so that when it comes to the planning committee, they can look at, the writing and say, oh, it's already in there, so now we've gotta follow what's in the UDO versus, well, we need to make a
Subject
decision.
to opinion.
Right, correct.
We're doing it for aesthetics.
You think if they're gonna change the whole neighborhood, that needs to come back before the board of commissioners?
Yeah, well,
I do.
I mean, if we have it in writing, as the board, we've already set the standard. So the planning commission is gonna follow what we've put in writing.
We're gonna put that, we can put an aesthetics,
I think
and
that'll be
and
excellent.
put that in there, so we'll, go ahead and add that. So these were the major changes, or some of the challenges that did come up for the open space overlay. So I hope we've been able to address all of those. The overlay is beneficial to the county in terms of, protecting our sensitive environmental areas. But if we put the correct parameters in place, we can also, address what the concerns were in terms of the densities, as you said, the aesthetics and so on. So this is what we were proposing for that, so I'm looking forward to your feedback.
That's gonna help, also, got so many subdivisions and there, different subdivision to connect to the same road, and that's one of the biggest issue that I'm seeing, and there, I think that you and I connected over there on a couple of those subdivisions, where they got, using the one road, one exit, in and out, and have to come to another subdivision to get out.
That's another
That's a
issue.
big issue.
Can we address that in the UDO?
Two sides to that coin, so I'm coming to that, so it's
Okay.
actually in the overlays thing, so those are specific overlay districts, not countywide, but, that's on my next slide.
Okay.
So the rural village overlay, has not been used, so we're looking to remove it. Residential neighborhood development overlay is actually tied into the Stanton Springs business district, which doesn't allow residential homes, so it essentially has not been used. And the same for the town center overlay district, is only allowed in Stanton Springs, and they don't have a residential component there, so these three overlays have just been sitting there, so, we're gonna reserve them, remove them for now, and if, the need comes up, we can always reassess.
Well, we mentioned town center overlay for several other places though, so.
Yeah, there's only in the Almond overlays, Salem overlay, Brixton overlays. But these two specific ones are specific for Stanton Springs Business District, and when we do the updates on that, the residential component is just not there. So yeah, it's kind of, it's not applicable right now. So we'll just reserve those for later and take them out. So the Almond overlay district. So this is the area we've had the most challenges with densities. So everything in red is the change we're proposing. So it's currently 2 units per acre. That was done in 2022. The minimum lot area is currently 6,000 square feet. We're proposing to double that to 12,000 square feet for sewer lots. If it's on septic, it's going to be 25,500 regardless. So that's a state requirement. In the tier 2, so the tier 1 is the yellow area for Salem overlay, Almond overlay, sorry. So everything in yellow, that's when we have that. Tier 2 is everything in green. So currently, this is a non-residential mixed-use district. So townhomes, this is currently 12 units per acre. We're looking to reduce that to 7 units, and then we're looking to prohibit multifamily in this tier. So they won't be able to, that wouldn't be an option as part of the mixed use, it'll be either single family or townhomes. And then we also address the percentages of that.
I think you gotta look at townhomes, that area is too big, that's where they're getting hit off the townhomes right now, is that.
Yes.
So I think you gotta really, maybe you just take out other than single family, because this is where everybody's loading up, that's a big area to be loading up with some townhomes. That's a huge area,
Yes.
Agreed? Okay.
it's up to them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, we definitely need to look at it.
So the tier 2 needs to be reworked, for sure. Or change the land, whatever, or something, just make it to a tighter center. All of it, like all of it, you can't be green, make it tighter to the center of I-20, make it tighter to I-20 or something, but that's a whole area there.
So make it closer to the line.
I mean, if that's what they want, but that's a lot of green there.
It is a lot of green.
For
You
townhouses.
don't want townhouses, though.
It's mostly built out, and then the last lots were on Cove Road, which is.
Oh, they'll find it, whatever's left.
But, yeah, this is mostly built out, the rest is wetland.
The rest of it's wet.
The what?
Rest of it's wetlands.
The large remaining lots where it goes on Crow Road and most have already been taken.
I mean, I just look at it, cause that's a lot of
Yeah.
green, that's a lot of green.
Yeah, look at it.
Or you take out the multifamily.
And a lot of yellow.
Well, the yellow single family.
Okay.
The Almond Town Center, that's the area in blue, single family 3.5 to 5 units per acre. The minimum lot area was 5,000 square feet, we're looking to put it at 10,000 square feet. And then this, because the town center allows 8 units per acre for townhomes. And we've reduced multifamily from 15 to 10 units. So that's the only area in Almond overlay that we would allow multifamily. And the times will be part of a mixed use development.
Well, let me ask you a question. The other night, we had 4.6 per units per acre, and we had 3.6 to 3.2 units per acre. So if you got townhomes 8 units per acre, how's that happening? You see what I'm
We can
saying?
adjust that down.
Huh?
We can adjust it down if, yeah.
But that's what I'm asking though, is so we had a townhouse development come before us.
It was in this tier, sorry,
So that, but you're saying it's 12 units per acre, right?
in the tier 3. Where am I? Oh, tier 2.
So how come we had 4.6 units per acre? Because they were using the other overlay of the conservation on top of it?
The townhomes,
This is one.
no, I think it's
The
the
flat.
same overlay.
It's the same one.
Oh, no, it's Almond in
The
it.
wetlands was part of that.
Oh. No, I think it was another one.
Just let's say on three.
It was tier 3 and that was the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
overlay.
4.3 acres.
So that was the same overlay.
Where does
as
the
that
7 max and, for that one, so this is weird, in Almond, and we're going to the Salem next. But they were within their density, because we checked for that before, it
Was
moves
one
forward.
of them in, wait a minute, I got it, let me look.
One was an almond, one was in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
the one in Almond was like 3.6.
Correct. But they
Units
used
per
that
acre.
calculation on the wetlands that they have.
So they did 2 overlays on top of each other to get that?
But 3.6 would have been less than the 8
Still get
units,
less, yeah.
it's still less than the 8
So that's
units,
less than 10.
so they were within their density. Yeah, we would not approve the density above what is allowed, you know.
Well, I mean,
They had less units per acre.
like the other night, we had a 4.3,
If they got less than 8.
They
but
had
you
less than.
have 4,400 square feet
Commercial.
commercial and parking on that 4.3 acres.
And there's a Salem.
But they still use,
That was
That was Salem.
same.
right, but I'm saying they still use that,
It's still less
7
than
units per
that.
acre.
Bottom line is the
It's
problem.
less. It's less than 10. Cause the max you can go up at that time for a long.
So it's less intense.
Yeah,
Yes.
But they also used the half that property could not even be used because it was in wetlands.
Correct.
for the town, yeah, the town, river, the yellow,
The yellow.
yeah,
Yellow
the
river,
Almond, yes,
Which overlay is that one in?
That's
that's
all.
Almond.
Alright, so let's use that one development right now.
Right.
Almond overlay, they had, what was it, 4.6 per unit? Okay, and then they had a big old commercial building out on the front of it. No, not that one,
They had
not
the
that one,
trails.
yes, they had the trail.
This is civic and commercial.
Which, yeah, did they use 2 overlays on that one? Did they use a conservation on that, or
They
just
did not.
squeezed everything on the land
They
that was
just,
good?
yeah, they just use the one overlay, the
But
trail.
but for the amount of acres that they had, that worked for them, for the amount of acres they had?
counted the density.
18
It's like two,
Cause only what was it, 3 or 4 acres was buildable on that property.
Correct. Because they use the web.
they use a total here, so,
Total.
so that's something we were gonna look to address, that they, we should be very,
That's part of
just the usable
updates that
space.
would have to be used.
Yeah.
Can we
Yes, Chairman.
stop them from counting the wetlands as a?
That's what we were discussing,
Mhm.
in the overlay districts, yeah.
Mhm.
So,
No, it is.
I think that'll be good.
So these are the density reductions we're looking at. Of course, removing multifamily from the second tier and then reducing it from tier 3.
No, we go with development.
We're prohibiting tiny homes from this overlay. So for if it's gonna be a mixed-use development, 66% of the residential has to be built out, and then they have to start commercial. And when they've done about 50% of commercial, they can go back to the residential. And this is the only way to guarantee that the commercial will actually ever get built. That's a problem we're having right now. We're just getting all the residential portions, and nobody's really building out the commercial side of it. So the residents don't get to benefit from that. For true mixed use, if there's, so this is only gonna be put for the tier 3. We are looking at, so currently now they come in and they're allowed to do mixed use, and they say, well, we're gonna do single family and civic, or, single family and commercial, or townhomes and commercial. What we want to do is have a variety of homes in there, so you have to do X% single family, X% townhomes, X%, multifamily where it's applicable. So that would prevent them prevent something like just the apartments that are sitting outside of the high school, right? It will be just one mixed-use development that only has apartments in it, or the township of the river, right? It will be just one mixed-use development that only has townhomes in it. We want it to be like a true mixed-use development with a variety of housing types.
So Shannon, can we recommend that the commercial start first, even before any residential is built? Because I would like to see the commercial built first, and then you build the residential around the commercial. Not, hey, I'm gonna do 66% of the residential, then I start on my commercial. Why can't we just say the commercial has to be first? Because in most cases, that's always near the front of that mixed-use development. And so they can start on that first, complete that even before they begin any of the residential. So I would like to see the commercial first before any residential is even built.
Well, definitely, yeah, I'm gonna look into that, make sure there's no legalities, yeah, definitely.
So on this tier 3, there's no minimum lot area, no minimum lot width, 0 front setback, 0 side back, 0 rear setbacks.
There's a big one out there, it's
The units could be as small as 650 square feet. Also, do we have in that situation what aesthetics? We need to make sure that these have the proper, we need to look at them.
Alderman has a whole section of on that.
But does that need to be updated? Because times have changed. That almond overlay's been out there for a long time.
I think the main thing is that we prohibited the vinyl siding, but we do have like the.
We do have vinyl siding still in it?
No, we prohibited that.
Okay.
That's never been there, we haven't allowed it now. I think the aesthetics are, they're still applicable, but what we have done is, the monotony, so you can't have similar elevations side by side. So the two same house plans cannot, relocate close to each other, we have to mix that up. So we mixed up the elevations, that's a requirement now, because we have too many subdivisions were built and going there was like the same plan down the whole street.
Right.
So we are stopping that, and then, we're enforcing the staggering of the homes. But the overlays, the number one thing with overlays has always been the aesthetics, so that was, thought out in detail when they did that.
Shannon, I know you said line of siding, but it still needs to be,
No vinyl siding.
No
no vinyl siding,
Yeah.
what I'm saying, but we still need to be more specific on the siding itself
Yeah.
too. Because we got the builder grade siding, that's look just as bad as the vinyl. So I think we need to be.
We do list the specific materials that are needed, yeah. We
Okay.
break stucco mortar, they have to do like cement siding. That was what they use in the overlay zone, it's never been vinyl. And then they have architectural shingles instead of just regular shingles. And then all the other accent pieces that they do have to put on
Like
commercial
brick
and
skirts.
residential.
Oh, they have brick skirts on
There's
them.
a brick skirting, yeah.
Can we know from a material perspective, these builders are making an enormous amount of revenue on these developments. And it seems like, and quote, I mean, correct me if I'm incorrect, but it seems as if we are allowing developers to come into our community, build these developments for the least amount of money possible that they're investing upfront. And then we're being left with secondary type of housing, and they're generating an enormous amount of revenue. So is there a way, like we talked about the aesthetics, and I know that, you know, I see on some of our newly built homes now, you don't see brick anymore. You don't see, you know, any of these things that will really make a home look more attractive.
It's styles too.
So we do.
Yes, so I'm just,
Cost.
So
I know that's why I said I know I led with that they cost, but can't we say, hey, well, if you wanna build here, then this is what's required. And we, like we talked about the aesthetics, to make sure that, especially in these overlay districts, that there is an aesthetics that you may not find in a non-overlay district.
That is currently in place. They are required to have like the brick skirting or, some them off like a brick front.
So that's all we're gonna allow is the skirting. We're not gonna allow a side
Or the front.
or the front.
Some of them have like three-sided brick homes. I mean, if we mandate that, then we do run into that monotonous, the monotonous design thing. Like every home will have three-sided brick. There are allowed to use different materials, whether it's a cement board siding, whether it's stucco, different, we have the, what do you call it, it's like board and batten, so cedar front, so they have a variety of materials they can use for that aesthetic variety. So we're trying to make sure that we don't create a new monotony while trying to improve the aesthetics. So they do have a menu list of materials that they can choose from, which are designed to improve aesthetics. In 2022, the board did mandate they at least have that skirt around like homes in subdivisions, not on miscellaneous parcels. So they all have to have that brick skirting, at least also kind of brick accent on their homes, regardless, which district they were in. So the overlay districts are designed specifically to address aesthetics, and they are heavy on that. Outside of the overlay is where we have, they can have accent pieces of brick, or skirts. But we're trying to be cautious and not to create a new monopoly by mandating like every house have, full brick, three-sided brick home.
So do you think it would be monotonous to require, that similar, say, brick aesthetic, and I'll use it as an example, but have a different elevation? That would still make it monotonous. When you got different elevations, you got different home styles, but that brick is required on all of those different types of, so they look similar, but they're not similar when you look at how that home is actually built.
Yeah, if you're requiring a three-sided brick, right?
And not necessarily three-sided, but even maybe it's just the front.
That is in place right now.
Okay. So in the Salem overlay districts, the front of every single home has to be completely brick?
Not the whole front, the minimum, they have to have a water table at a minimum. Some of them opt to do the whole.
So that's what I'm saying, can we make it, change it where it's all front in the overlay districts, not just the skirting?
If that's what the board wants to do, but then that monotonous factor comes into play.
I hear you, but I don't think that's the best thing to do because.
Okay, and that's what I'm asking.
Because everybody wants a craftsman style house now, that's like a
Right.
style, so styles change and, you know, I love when you go through a custom subdivision where it's not cookie cutter and everything is the same. But there's other ways we can make it not look, cookie cutter
Right.
without dictating you know, it's all brick, because
Right.
brick has become so expensive that people can't afford it to put on their house, that's why they go with different types of materials because of that. So as far as that goes, I don't know that we mandate all brick, because things do change. I mean, I have people in my neighborhood that are screaming because all the new houses in the back are craftsman style.
Right.
And, so I think there's other ways we can do it and make sure that it's right, but instead of dictating exactly what the entire material has to be, in my opinion.
I think
And I think from a real estate perspective, thank you for adding that value, because we want to make sure that, you know, we're having that aesthetics conversation, but it is still from a craftsman's perspective. And so I don't want to take away the craftsmanship, but I still want to make sure that they're nice and they don't look cookie cutter. They don't look, and I don't like to use this word, but they don't look cheap.
Yeah.
Commissioner Mason, I think, by us, having them not having similar elevations side by side, it would address that, because different elevations come with different materials too, so.
Okay.
That would address that.
I have a question too. Okay, for me, use this one as an example. Westfield Village. I mean, I don't see no brick, and pretty much the house is the same color. You go through the whole neighborhood, they're all beige, tones.
Yes, unfortunately, zoning, we can't regulate color, we can regulate material, they would have to have at least a brick water table. They do.
Yeah, but that's probably a foot table. I mean, you can barely see it, so.
No, we can't police color, unfortunately.
So what happened to this community? This Ram Village is terrible.
They're not an overlay.
Huh?
They're not an overlay.
Okay, so guys, this is one of our newer developments. You see it?
Is that like
It's
townhomes?
Ram Village townhomes, they were across from Newton, the old Newton High School, where whatever the other
So
school is.
across the street.
Yeah, it's all across from where they call it now,
The apartments.
Career County.
That's my
Okay.
grand drive, yeah.
Yeah, so this is what we do not want.
Oh, yes, no, we don't, oh, no.
We just built 12 buildings that look just like that.
We similar to that.
So how did that occur?
How did that happen? It's not overlay.
Right.
That's not the overlay.
But all of the requirements of building and aesthetically looks have to be applied all over. They cannot be.
Yeah.
I believe they started before we brought in the water table for on-site overlay, like the brick water table requirement. I think they were in there before.
Okay, let me ask you this, they might have been zoned, but they didn't start.
Yeah, that's been in the works for 3-4 years now, maybe.
So how long did we change that?
We changed it in 22, and they've probably been in here just about that time. I think they missed but I agree, that is very stark, and that's why we looked at that and we're like, yeah, we need to, put some little more aesthetics in other subdivisions. That's a question I did ask the consultants, if we can mandate the entire county, and it's a tight line to walk.
Not listen to these people, we can do.
Well, they came up with that, but yeah, it's a tight line to walk, but, we are halfway through, I don't wanna, we're almost at 12, I'm told.
We could do a zoning cycle, the R1, R2, R3, maybe not the ARs and the As, but we can put it on certain zoning types.
Yeah, so we have started requesting additional like accent type art aesthetics on to prevent something like that.
But we gotta have it in writing, we can't just ask.
No, it's currently in writing right now, as I say, I'm thinking they missed that when they came in for their, commissioners, Mr. Brown. We're almost at 12, I do wanna finish the last 2 overlays, and that will be at a halfway point, and probably have to meet another day to finish the last 5 chapters. But just quickly, we're looking for a more robust definition of civic mixed use instead of it just being a trail. Because most of the subdivisions, all we're gonna do civic and residential, and we can get a walking trail. We want the actual amenities, that residents can use. So we're looking at creating a menu list of choices for them to choose from. Interparks of connectivity is currently, it's currently in the overlays. It's supposed to promote the walkability, which was the purpose of the overlays. And then we have similar elevation shall not repeat or alternate, which is the changing of facade. The Salem overlay, tier 1 residential, so it's 3 units per acre. The minimum lot size is 14,520 on sewer. So this is a typical example, like for Westfield, they're in the overlay, but because they put the open space on top of this overlay, they went up to 7,000 square feet. So that's why we're removing, we should remove that requirement. The tier 2 moderate commercial townhomes are 3 units per acre, 5 units mixed use. We're proposing to remove multifamily from that tier. And our town center, 3 standalone units or 7 mixed use. And then you have 6 standalone and 9 mixed use. That's supposed to be for the multifamily in the town center. So the town centers are intended to be a tight-knit development, walkable, if that's something, that is desirable. So that's why I kind of left the multifamily option there. But of course, it's probably not gonna be just by rights. We're probably gonna have to, come up with something like that.
Conditional use.
Yeah. So same exemptions here, no tiny homes. We're looking at, we're gonna address this here with, see if we get a commercial in first. But definitely we can have something so we don't just get all residential built. So I will give the board feedback on that one. Again, civic definition, more robust use, menu choice for amenities and civic uses, no similar elevations, side by side. And if you're gonna do the true mixed use, you're not gonna just get one type of housing. We wanna see, X% of single family townhomes and if applicable, if you're in the town center, multifamily.
We have to be really detailed on that because the way we have these written, they can immediately flip to multifamily with the administrative stroke.
Yes, we don't have that, so that's why we're gonna do this specific percentage, so to limit that, instead of just having all multifamily or all townhomes. The brick store overlay, single, tier 1 is single family, their minimum lot size is 32,000 square feet. Tier 2 is a modern commercial townhomes, standalone townhomes are not allowed in the brick store overlay. Mixed use, you can do 7 units, but a cup is required, so we can implement the same cup requirement in the other 2 overlays. Multifamily standalone is not allowed, and if you're doing mixed use, you can do 4 units per acre for multifamily currently in the brick store tier 2. Tier 3, there's a lot of town centers, so all the overlays have a town center, and that's to create that kind of town center vibe. So you will have the density there, but they're not townhomes, you cannot do them standalone, so they have to be, mixed, but that's part of a mixed use development. And it can only be like 7 units per acre, cup is required. And multifamily is not allowed as standalone. You have to do mixed use 6 units. So we're trying to implement the same thing over, the other 2 overlays where, you can't do like standalone, just all multifamily or all townhomes. But these are, current requirements we have there, and it's the same thing. So townhomes, they do have a stipulation currently, it's only 30% of the residential use, so we're trying to implement something like that now in the other 2 overlays, where we give a specific percentage, of the denser uses. You can do townhome or lofts with single family development. Tiny homes are prohibited, and again, the civic use, the menu list. No similar elevations repeating, and of course, we're looking at, we ensure that we get a commercial development built, at or around the same time as single of the homes if we're doing a mixed use development.
So Shayna, I'm noticing difference in these overlays. Why aren't they exactly the same? Because I think if it's gonna be an overlay,
You can make it.
So
it should be exactly the same in every single overlay, whether it's Salem, whether it's brick store, it should be exactly the same. There should not be a difference in this overlay from that overlay. If they're gonna be overlays, we're gonna make them exactly the same. Tier 1 is the same, tier 2 is the same, tier 3 is the same. Everything should mirror the exact same in every single overlay.
We can do that, by just
You're
reducing
gonna make
the
it the
number.
most restrictive if you do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, make it.
yeah,
brick store.
exactly.
Because the brick store is the most restrictive.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
So we
Brick
match,
store.
match,
We can match it.
Match.
all the other ones match brick store.
match them all the same.
Yeah, we can definitely reduce the densities.
You think chickens are bad, you wait to start messing with these.
Yeah, I think match whatever the most restrictive is, match them in all those, so that you see
I'm not sure about that.
you see the equitable, it's equal all across the board.
Absolutely. And that's it for overlays. The next one is chapter 6, but I believe, we're gonna do that a different day. And we're over time, Mr. Brown was telling me. So we have about 10 minutes for any kind of wrap-up discussion, or?
I'm confused about the town center zoning, where one place we said it's only at Stanton Springs, and why do we have it everywhere?
No, so each overlay has a
The
component.
overlay
Yeah.
town center, so we might need to work on wording, because
So
if you
we
take the other one out, then it won't match anymore, right?
right, we removed the other two, because those were specific just to the standards for monitoring and, normally have been built, so,
I think it's a little confusing, we've got.
but each overlay has, and the town center is intended to be that little intimate, walkable, livable community within the overlay, so just like a small section of the overlay.
That's what a lot of residents are asking for, those walkable communities. They're asking for.
We do that one when they come before us.
Right. That's why I think we make them the most restrictive, so that we at least have that as an option, but it is, as restrictive as possible. But we're at least allowing it. Because we wanna have at the end of the day, we wanna make sure that we have a diverse housing, option, across the entire county. We've gotta have diversity, period. And so, and I know the A word is, you can be crucified for saying the A word in Newton County,
Same one.
apartments.
Oh.
Oh, you thought I was talking about the other A word?
I
You can be crucified for saying that word in Newton County, but I think our mentality, we have to get to a space in our community to say, okay, we want to make sure that we designate those in specific areas, but not every person has the credit score to buy a home. They don't have the down payment. So now we're forcing people who want to enjoy our community to be in a space or in a place to be able to buy a single family home. Well, how can we say,
Yeah, but do we already have 15,000 of these type units?
well, that's what I'm
already?
saying, we wanna
What is that
designate, we wanna look at where they are currently sitting and say, okay, do we wanna add more here or not add any more here, but in this particular, area, we can allow maybe one more. So I think instead of just saying none, no townhomes at all, no apartments at all, as a board, let's look at where we currently have those multifamily, those apartments, and say, let's make sure that we're spacing those out and they're not all together, because you see a lot of them in one specific area.
Yeah, but the reason why they're in one area closer to a city is because of the walking and work and compatibility. To have them, the county is so huge, to have somebody with a walking community that's 50, 30 miles, it takes me almost a half an hour or 45 minutes to get to District 2 from where I live.
Correct.
So I think that closer to the city limits of Covington, that's where we typically see these type of developments, because that's how you build a community, is you have more people can walk or get to things a little easier, or if they have to Uber, it's not as far or something.
Correct.
So I think that's kind of, when you're developing a community, that's kind of the thought process that you have, but we need to do a better job of how they look and how we're letting them look and what we're doing. But to just say that, I don't know that you can get rid of one type of development. I agree with you, can't, but you can have where the structure is, where it makes sense, where the sewer is, where the road are, all those things.
Right.
Not somewhere where 6 years from now, we might get sewer, or 6 years from now, we're gonna pave your road.
Correct.
So I think that has to be the mindset going into this, is it just can't be, all over the county. It has to be where the infrastructure is, where those things are. And then how many do we have? I think we have 15,000 units already of these type townhouses and, multifamily and all that, cause before I was elected, I added them up, and it was like 10. Huh?
As an unincorporated?
No, including the city, okay, yeah, so there was like 10,000 units in the hopper when another one came before y'all to, that's why I got to this seat, was because nobody remembered what was out there. And I think we need to always know what's out there that hasn't been developed yet.
So I would love, Shayna, to see a map, and I think it would be great for the board to be able to visually see
What's already been zoned for.
an entire county map to say, these are where multifamily homes are located, and this is how many units are in, so that we can physically see from a big picture perspective where these are located and how they look, so that we can make a better determination of where future developments such as multifamily should be located.
Right, and the key thing with multifamilies is they go where the sewer is. They're not allowed on septic lots.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah, but have we zoned some already in different areas that don't have sewer yet, that they're hoping and praying that's gonna be out there?
Correct. And that's
There's
good.
no more multifamily zoning, you have to come, anybody who's looking to do that would have to come and rezone.
Multifamily, every developer knows that that's a terrible word, that if they mention the A
Right.
word,
Right.
it's, so now the big trend is, let's do a townhouse instead, and
Yeah.
run it like apartments.
Yes.
So that's what they do,
Yeah,
yeah.
do a mixture, so you can't just come and do all townhomes anymore, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do.
It's Jerry Stevens.
And I was gonna say, one last thing too, we have to keep in mind, there's a lot of standing inventory that's not moved.
And there's a lot of apartments that are 50% occupancy.
That's right, a lot of apartments that are 50% occupied here, so we have a lot of stuff that's just sitting.
Can that be addressed in the UDO? Like, if it's like you said, 50% occupied?
We can give you a vacancy map.
Okay,
Okay.
land vacancies.
Land vacancy.
We can do land vacancies, but not like occupancy.
So we can't force the,
Yeah, but if you get a zoning in your area, you can go ask all the apartments what their occupancy rate is.
But because the concern is they're building more and more
More.
new,
they have.
but the other stuff hasn't moved,
Filled up.
so you're creating more vacancies.
Same thing as these large commercial buildings that are sitting out there and nobody's in.
Yes. Yes.
I would love to be able, I mean, I don't
So
know if
they
we
can
can
address
address
that, right, we address that.
anything that's unoccupied. Is that something that we could address to say, hey, this is unoccupied, and before we can build something else, this has to be occupied
I
before
don't
we
think
can
you can
build.
say you can't make it that way.
You can't make it that way.
But you could use it in your consideration of as the district commissioner of your authority of,
Okay,
we got 14 buildings sitting out here empty, here, we don't need another building.
so maybe that's data that the board should have, those occupancy, that occupancy data, because that'll help us make better decisions when these type of cases, or development applicants or come to the board, we can make a better informed decision because we have that data.
People have land rights.
Right.
You have land rights, and you can't cut off somebody's land rights. Now, you can make things better, you can make your community better, and that's what your job is, but you can't just cut people off at the throat and say, you can never sell your land, you can never develop your land. But it may not be the way they want it to develop, but they can develop it as something,
Correct, that's correct.
And that's why when we have conflict with some people, I say, come in and let's sit down and throw the map out on the table, let's figure out what we can all live with
Right,
that makes sense, and then we can build beautiful communities together.
that's it, 100%. Because I think sometimes too, to your point, Commissioner Long, I think sometimes it is requested by our residents to say, well, no, you can't do this.
You can't tell somebody you can't build another chicken restaurant in Newton County.
Right,
I mean, that is the craziest thing I ever hear, because,
right,
companies come here based on demographics, they make, it's census, it's data, all this data, they're sitting in New York, and they look at data and they say, this is where we want to be. So you can't just say, if chicken is the number one selling food that people eat, then they're gonna put a chicken restaurant here. So that's just how it works, but, I mean, I think that we're doing better, we get some things that are different from chicken.
Yeah.
But personally, I love chicken, so, but anyway, I think, yeah, for citizens to come in and say, you know, we can't have a convenience store because there's no healthy food in there. You can't do that. You can't tell people you can't build a chicken restaurant. You can't tell people, you know, there has to be some rights for people. You just like the machines. I don't like any of those gambling machines either, but I think the biggest thing with those machines is those are state regulated, and if the state's allowing those machines, now what the police department, our sheriff's department can do is go by and do undercover operations to make sure there's not illegal gambling going on.
Right.
So I think that's how you monitor that situation. We, like a District 5, we had one that looked very shady to me, and I just kept sending everybody over there. I think it's finally closed now. But it was not a good establishment.
You're right, but we also got to have enough officers fund them.
We got enough.
So that they can go.
We did.
I mean, you're not there, you're not the sheriff, so you wouldn't know what that person needs.
He gave us a book, so we did.
So I just found out, and I'll end on this note, I sent a text message to the executive director of ACCG, and the gaming portions of convenience stores and supermarkets can be addressed through the general county government committee. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you have economic development and transportation, general county government, health and human services, natural resources and the environment, public safety and the courts, revenue and finance, which I'm the chair of, federal committee. So if we want to address the many casinos and convenience stores and or supermarkets or grocery stores, we can actually push that through the general county government committee through ACCG, and then they can lobby on our behalf to our state legislators to get that legislation changed.
Yeah.